And away we go on a Thursday morning. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us once again in a remote location and not in the cozy confines of our gorgeous and palatial Big 12 studios. I am Ari Tepkin. He is James Westling. Great to have you with us today and every day here. And you're home for the Big 12. Tune in and Big 12 studios. James is in Lubbock after last night's Texas Tech win over Utah. We've got so much to get to. We had some crazy January madness last night in hoops, and not just on the men's side, not just on the Big 12 side. The end of the TCU West Virginia women's game was incredible, and then three insane buzzer beaters outside of the Big 12 last night, including a Christian Laettner esque make for Kentucky, SMU with a half court heave over Virginia Tech. And James, poor Virginia Tech has lost three ACC games to start this year, all on last second 3-point shots, including last night's buzzer beater by SMU. It was a unbelievable January madness last night in college hoops. Sometimes you just never know when you're going to get these kinds of days, and that was last night.
Man, it was awesome. And I don't know that it's a coincidence that this is also the first week that students are back all across America. Texas Tech started classes yesterday, so they finally had their student section out in full force. They were all wearing JT Toppin jerseys, and all across the country. Same thing at SMU, where they had the half court heave. The Virginia Tech losses remind me of what you and I were talking with Tim Weiser about, the former K State athletic director who now works for the Big 12. You know, Jim Woolridge, the K State coach pre Frank Martin and pre Bob Huggins, he had like 2 seasons where it felt like 6 to 10 of his losses were on buzzer beaters. I mean, the guy just couldn't catch a break. And that's Virginia Tech right now. And that was West Virginia on the women's side last night with TCU in their walk-off win. So full slate of hoops, and man, it delivered. It delivered last night in every way. And it's like when the calendar flips over to the new year and the second semester truly begins with all the non-athlete students that are back in session, it's a whole different ball game when it comes to college basketball.
Yeah, well said. All right, so I want to get into the Big 12 games from last night. There was a lot of interesting things that happened. Cincinnati got its first win. K-State still without a Big 12 win as well, losing at home last night. Plus your game. We've got Krista Gerlich, the head women's basketball coach at Texas Tech, coming up later on in the show today. Plus a lot happening in college football and in the transfer portal news, James. But let's get a report on Lubbock yesterday. So you were tasked with going to maybe some of the great haunts of Lubbock, eateries, if you will. Give us the report. What'd you do? Did you leave your hotel?
You know, you guys gave me a list of 6 or 7 restaurants, and,
I said you'd
just
go for six.
being me, being simple James, oh, hang on 1 second. Just one quick second.
What is this? With your shacket. James, of course, if you're watching us on Big 12 Studios, is wearing his famed shacket. Oh, Abuelo's Mexican restaurant. Okay.
Abuelos was on the list.
One
Ab-
for
ab-
five. Let's
ab-
go.
Abuelos was had last night.
Was it walkable from where you're staying? Is that why you picked Abuelo's?
No, it was the only thing open, Ari, and it's never walkable because I don't have a rental car here in Lubbock, so it was door dashed. And actually, I was ahead of the game. I ordered and scheduled my food to be delivered while I was actually still at the arena. I
Look
did
at
it like
you.
right when I got there. So when I got to my hotel at like 10:30 last night, because we had to do studio stuff after the game, and it's a little bit different with that aspect. We get out of there a little bit later. But when I got to my room, my food was there at my front door waiting for me.
What'd you
My
get?
my steak taco combo from Abuelos, 10 out of 10. It was delicious, especially at about 11 o'clock last night.
Wow, 10 out of 10. All right. I love this as a series moving forward. James tries different eateries across Big 12 country. And I hope you're going to be, I mean, I hope Abuelo's is really that good, or you're just a really easy grader. I'm not sure which one's which, but they all can't be tens, James. I'm just going to
All
tell
right,
you that.
all right. If they all can't be
Oh,
tens,
here we go. Buckle
Abuelos
up.
is probably getting a 7. Probably a 7 out of 10.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's reasonable.
Like
Fair.
it was. I know it's a local staple. It's a local favorite. Did it taste like and kind of appearances wise feel like a lot of other local establishment Mexican restaurants that I've had over the years? I would say yes. I would say yes. But again, at 11 o'clock last night, it hit the spot.
With literally nothing else open. It was perfect. So you didn't even do any of those other spots for lunch or anything?
I didn't have time, man. We had the show, and then I went from the show straight to Utah's shoot around,
Oh,
and
wow.
then came back to the hotel and basically had enough time to kind of gather my thoughts and put that interview together. And then we had to go back to the arena for Texas Tech's shoot around. So I did have a window, and usually do, but it's in like a weird spot of the day. It's like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So at that point, I'd already eaten and uh, but I had abuelos lined up, and let me say the USA United Supermarkets Arena, Texas Tech never loses there. They're undefeated at home this year. The women are 18-0.
And weren't they undefeated last year at home too?
They may have been. I think Houston may have got them
Yep.
last year
Yep.
because Tech won the ejection game on the road at the Fertitta Center.
Yep. Good
But
call.
since Grant McCaslin has been at Tech, they are 39-5 at
Wow.
home, and most of those losses came in his first year. So they've been really good, and man, it was deafening. Like my ears are still ringing from that crowd noise last night. They had some wild circus halftime entertainment stuff going on. It was electric, and it was Big 12 basketball at its finest for this time of year.
Do they have the panda at halftime? Is that what they had?
No, they didn't have the panda. They had a guy who stacked like dining room chairs on top of one another and built this
So
massive
similar to
tower.
Red Panda, it's not, it sounds like.
Maybe he is the red panda.
No, Red Panda is the woman on a unicycle who like balances the plate. She's very famous. She does tons of halftime shows.
Got it. No, this was not. This might have been Red Panda's nemesis. This might have been her ultimate circus rival because this dude was legit. He was probably like, he's probably in his 70s. And you can tell he's been doing it forever. But just the balance, and then he gets up there and he does like a one-armed handstand on top of all the chairs. It
Wow.
blew my mind. I thought all the chairs were glued together, but apparently they're not. He's just got incredible balance.
That's fantastic. All right, so much to get to. We'll get into each and every one of these basketball games. Plus, you worked with Tom Crean last night, the former Indiana and Marquette coach. So we'll get your thoughts on him. Plus, I really enjoyed some of the Peacock broadcast. Aside from the announcers, it was all really good. Thank you for catching that shade. Um, and
To be fair, Ari, I wasn't on my A game last night. I'll admit I was not on my A game. Tom carried the show, but that is Tom. Dude, that is Tom. Tom, who's going to be a regular on Big 12 today as of last night because he's just the ultimate dude. You're going to love him.
yeah, met him before. Glad you had a good experience with him. Um, all right, so portal season updates as well later on in the show is each and every day over the next 2 weeks plus. We're going to be breaking down sort of updates across the Big 12. Yesterday we had Oklahoma State. We're working our way up from the standings from the bottom to the top, giving you kind of the quick refresher on coaching updates, portal updates, a lot more coaching updates and changes at the bottom of the standings than towards the top. So that'll be a huge part of our conversation on Colorado finished second to last in this past season. So much to get to on today's show, but some pretty significant news with the transfer portal, and maybe the most reasonable and important decision in terms of the transfer portal. So the NCAA has adopted a new transfer portal window for men's and women's college basketball that the portal will be opening now following the national championship game for those respective sports and will be open for 15 days following their respective national championships. This will take effect immediately, which means that the portal for the women's basketball will open April 6th through April 20th, and men's basketball will have its portal open from April 7th through April 21st.
This is great. This is great for college basketball. I mean, the portal chaos that we see in college football was happening in basketball too. And in basketball, when you're trying to put together 13 spots and you have teams that are losing their entire rosters in the portal, in the case of Baylor, while still playing in the NCAA tournament, it's madness and not the good kind. So, coaches having to recruit while also trying to win a national title and the distractions that this was causing with the players while their teams are actually still alive, it was a big problem. And give the NCAA credit for getting this done and getting it done right away. To have the portal open now at the conclusion of the season, if they can do it in basketball, why can't we do it in football? And I know the calendar year is a little bit different, and you're still in class in college basketball, and you don't have the bleed over, and you don't have finals week like you do during the college football season. The basketball calendar just shapes up a whole lot better, so it's easier for them to make this move. But man, it was long overdue, and it puts the NCAA tournament in the spot that it should be all the way through the national championship, and that is at the forefront of college basketball because the tournament should be about winning, not about roster management. So I love this move. It helps the coaches, it helps the players, it helps the fans. It keeps them more engaged, whether their team is in it or not. And so I love it. I love the move.
Yeah, I wonder if this is the move for all sports. Is this the right move for the portal for football? If do we prefer free agency, quote unquote, to occur following the draft essentially, which would be, if they do move the early signing period and remove that, and then you return to the first Tuesday in February, do you want the portal to be following that, or is it better for the portal to be following the national championship game and then it'll be open for 15 days, which then leads you to the signing period? That I'm curious how much this will translate to other sports as well.
No, definitely. I mean, absolutely. From a fan's perspective, and we've been, very outspoken about how we see that the college football calendar is broken and the transfer portal happening in the midst of the college football
Yeah.
playoffs is not a good thing. But for college football, the thing that makes it unique and tricky is the academic calendar. And I know that a lot of these guys don't care about going to class. They're all taking online classes. Very few student athletes at power conferences are even in class. I was just talking with the Texas Tech athletics department about that last night. Most of their student athletes are taking classes online, football and basketball. So for football, I mean, think about the portal season that we're going through right now. We're highlighting all 16 teams in the Big 12 and their portal additions and subtractions. There are still thousands of players in the portal, and classes are starting now. I mean, kids are in school now. And there are guys that are signing with teams as of today and
Yeah.
tomorrow and moving forward that are going to get a late start, not just athletically, but academically. And the fact that these teams are putting together their rosters now, and then we're going to go through the next 8 months before the season actually begins. I mean, we're going to completely forget who's on what team. And some of these guys might not show up, or they might not have the credit hours, or whatever the case may be. It's just so much more up in the air in college football compared to basketball. And I think a lot of it has to do with the academic calendar and where we lie with the college football playoffs and it getting pushed further and further and further down the road to where we're having the national championship game the third week of January. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Yeah. And it leads to a article that Ross Dellinger released yesterday. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, who's one of the foremost authorities in reporting around college sports and college football, basically, wondering if self-governance is the best approach for each power conference, and not something that Dellinger is suggesting, but rather what he's hearing when speaking with some of the administrators, commissioners across the Power Four, James. And what he writes is college leaders have created a new committee with the expressed mission to study the future of CFBS governance and determine if the subdivision should operate outside of the NCAA structure. And basically, what's happened here is there's a lot, obviously, going on behind the scenes where there's frustrations boiling over with the CSC, the College Sports Commission, and the lack of governance. Um, I mean, there's a lot here. I think ultimately what this says to me is clearly college sports do not have an alternative to the House settlement. So, like, the House settlement was the smoking gun. The House settlement was going to solve this whole mess. And that has not come to bear, shockingly, right? Can't believe that we would have promises being made from a financial situation outside of the confines of the salary cap. And so what we're hearing now is because this is not being policed properly or to the effect that they want it to be. By the way, they established this because they couldn't trust the NCAA to govern this. So they're already mad at this brand new structure that was just created after firing the NCAA. The alternative now is, well, maybe we should just govern this ourselves. And that's Greg Sankey thinking aloud to Ross Dellinger in an article.
And I'm trying to dissect how we would get to self governance if it is the conferences doing it internally, writing their own rules, enforcing the rules, punishing violators of those rules. The SEC for the SEC, and the Big Ten for the Big Ten, and the Big 12 rules for Big 12 schools. If those leagues are doing that, what are the potential roadblocks? Like, is that something where they have to get permission from the NCAA, or can these conferences legally do it on their own without the
They
NCAA stepping in?
they can do whatever they want, right? He who has the gold makes the rules. And in this case, it's the conferences and schools that hold the gold. I mean, at this point, they're not even really confined to the NCAA from football in many respects. I think the biggest pitfall of self governance is obvious in that, like, everybody's not going to have the same rules, and that's going to really
Exactly.
kick off the coaches, and it's going to have major issues. It continues to befuddle me that the obvious answer to this and solution is right in front of them, but they refuse to yield. And I think the reason for that is because they want, and I say they, Greg Sankey wants to exercise every option available to him. And the conference commissioners, it appears, want to exercise every option available to them in order to avoid collective bargaining. But that's like all of these problems they keep talking about. There's no, the salary cap, the contracts, that are basically fluid. Um, they're all fixed through collective bargaining. Linda Livingstone has quoted the president at Baylor is quoted in this article. She says, quote, if we don't get the federal legislation and schools don't legitimately agree to this settlement and do everything we can to follow the spirit of the law, if you don't get to that place, we're going to have to look at other alternatives that allow us to have guardrails. The ones you hear most about are some kind of bargaining model. We don't want an employment model, but everybody recognizes bargaining is something we need to be considering, end quote. This is actually from Linda Livingstone in an interview with Yahoo Sports and Ross Dellinger back in August. Resurfacing yet again with they knew. I mean, these aren't stupid people. These are extremely intelligent, highly educated individuals that know what the solution is here. They're just trying to avoid it at all costs.
And I give her a ton of credit for being one of the athletic directors and presidents that aren't afraid of the outside noise and are willing to bring that to the table. And the self-governance piece to me is really scary because it only works if all of the big leagues, if you will, or the large conferences can agree to work together. If they don't, there's a real possibility that the sport is even more fractured.
Yeah.
And that's a dark place for my mind to go to. And I don't see a ton of evidence that these leagues can work together when we're in a room together and we're trying to decide on the future of the college football playoff, and we can't get that right. And the December 1st deadline passes, and here we are in January, and we still have two conferences that are butting heads on what should be a somewhat simple solution, especially if we're talking about the short term. Like, we're talking about the next couple of years. We're not talking about 5 or 10 years down the road or locking in the future of the college football playoff long term. We're trying to get this thing done for maybe as early as next year. And if we can't come to an agreement on that, coming to an agreement on having the same enforcements and the same rule book just feels so far out from where we sit right now.
Mm. Yeah, well said. And look, I mean, part of this is, they have this House settlement, and then the College Sports Commission is a byproduct of the House settlement. But you have a large number of universities within the Power Four that have not signed an agreement to join the College Sports Commission. So, I mean, it's sort of interesting. You have the schools are tethered to the NCAA because the NCAA is the schools, right? And then they created this College Sports Commission because they didn't like what the NCAA was doing in terms of policing and adjudicating this stuff. And now they still don't agree with it. And it's like, but this is what you created. You don't like the thing you created. That's the most confusing, crazy part of this entire deal. Is this was created by the NCAA, which is the member institutions.
Totally. Totally. And if the conferences take the keys, like the NCAA has done, I mean, we're one step closer to a super league or college sports or college football specifically branching off and being its own thing, and the sport looking very, very different. And I still believe in our lifetime we are going to see that, where college football is its own deal. It is essentially the NFL for college athletes. There may be conference affiliations, but there's no NCAA affiliations, because right now, what is the NCAA really bringing to the table? We've got the clearinghouse, we've got the House settlement, and it has changed absolutely nothing when
Yeah.
it comes to college football and the transfer portal and NIL and all the things that we were complaining about before the House settlement.
Yeah, and in my opinion, some of this stuff to me is not like I just don't care as much about it in terms of like I don't care if this becomes you know a money contest. I think having structure around contracts and not having free agency every year and having guys have to be abide by contracts, that's the one thing that maybe concerns me more than anything. But ultimately, what I'm learning is this story continues to evolve, and Ross Dellinger's done a great job on this. They are willing to entertain literally anything beyond collective bargaining. That's James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo here on this Three Things Thirsty Thursday. And let's get into the games last night in basketball, including a walk-off winner for TCU in West Virginia on the women's side. That's all next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Here are the top plays from last night's action.
You heard Seth talk about it. These are going to be grind out possessions here tonight. There you go. Tugler for two and a foul, the opening goal.
He's not Anthony Edwards, but the way that he plays in that mid-range rising over defender, very smooth.
Very fair comparison, and the three is knocked down for victorious Miller. Well, they pressure the ball. They're very good in help side, and they make it really difficult to run clean offense. But Kansas has run really clean offense to start this game. Driving it and back cutting it. And Bryson Tiller did a great job of getting to the front of the rim on that back cut. Jefferson, a clean look and a three.
Inside, Manning drops it off. Nice cut by McGriff and a better finish.
Great pass inside by Manning. Excellent job to catch that ball and then drop off the dime.
Riley Kugel in traffic.
Yes, he is absolutely on fire. They got to make sure they continue to find that young man.
Well, if there's going to be an answer, it's going to be Haggerty. Lob, bang! Devin Cambridge shot out of a cannon.
Bottom 80 in the nation and makes. That is a problem right now. And you had Harris shoot it, who they want to shoot that. Great block by Miller. And Miller can, he's just not been able to knock him down today.
Traore, nice pass. Brown with the finish.
Trying to find Odom or Jop, and Odom almost gets his pocket picked. Under a minute to play now. Odom. Foul! And he hit it, a chance for a 4-point play. Man!
BYU. Double team came. Devonsa did a great job of getting through it, but then the three was blocked by Toulson. Boshkovich gets it back, scores with a foul.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. And big picture from Big 12 Hoops last night, James. And, I mean, there were some wild finishes, some great games, some upsets, some close finishes. But you got to start with the end of the TCU West Virginia game. 2.8 seconds left at WVU Coliseum. It's West Virginia versus TCU. West Virginia has a 50-48 lead. These are two of the best teams in the league. And here's how it sounded.
For two. On the inbound, Silva for three and the win. TCU with the dagger, and it comes from Marta Suarez, the team leader in threes, and TCU. They'll look at the clock here, but otherwise TCU escapes Morgantown with a 51-50 win over West Virginia.
Yeah, Marta Suarez with the game winner from the top of the key with 2.8 seconds left to walk it off against West Virginia last night, James.
West Virginia's Carter McRae. And that's a tremendous call because that game is at West Virginia. That is a home Morgantown, West Virginia announcing crew, and they called it right down the middle. That is a very difficult spot, especially for a West Virginia team that's really good, and they don't lose at home. So that's a huge win for TCU. Suarez is only continuing to get better. And she went 4 for 19 from the floor last night.
Wow.
And one of those 4 makes was the game winner. She did not have a good game. She had 7 turnovers, not 1 assist. So to get to that spot, to have the confidence when your shots haven't been falling, you know you've had a bad game for her standards and knock that down. That's guts.
Yeah.
And that is ultimate guts, leadership, it factor, closer. A huge win for TCU.
Yeah, well said. All right, last night in men's college hoops, undefeated Vanderbilt went down. 14th ranked North Carolina lost. Number 21, Georgia loses in overtime at the buzzer. SMU wins on a half-court heave. Kentucky wins at the buzzer. This was just an insane day across the sport. And in the Big 12, James, let's start with the game that you called. Texas Tech 88, Utah 74. This was a close game until the Red Raiders ripped off an 18-1 run late in the first half and pretty much were in control the rest of the way. JT Toppin with a ridiculous line. And I would say this was one of those games where you just saw the two-headed monster that is Toppin and Anderson. But Toppin with 31 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 blocks. Just a ridiculously dominant performance by Toppin.
And he had a 6th block that should have been a block, but it resulted in a jump ball, and so he didn't get credit for it statistically. He's a monster. And Texas Tech is an under-the-radar team that is getting better. They're the 6th best team in the country over the last 6 games via Torvik. So the improvement is there. I think we forget about their win over Duke on a neutral floor. And JT Toppin and Christian Anderson are so good that you just assume they don't have other guys and pieces around them, and that's not the case. Lawan Watts is getting better. Donovan Atwell is improving. He's one of the best shooters in the league. And JT Toppin is not at his best. That's what's scary for the rest of the Big 12. He's not shooting free throws at a high level. They've kind of changed his shot because they're trying to get him ready for the NBA, and it's resulted in some really poor foul shooting. And he didn't even attempt a free throw last night, so he's kind of shying away from contact and getting to the line. He's a little bit in his head. My point is they're working to fix that. He's going to be even more dominant. Christian Anderson is one of the most underrated point guards in this league. He just plays so under control that you almost forget about him. Like he's not a rah-rah guy. He just goes out there and does his thing. 26 points, 10 assists. He hit 6 threes, had 5 threes in the first half. And Texas Tech, they had a 24-point lead their last time out against Colorado, and Colorado whittled that down and actually missed a 3 at the buzzer that would have won the game for the Buffaloes. This time out, in about the same point in the game, Texas Tech had a 16 or 18-point lead. They go to the timeout, and Grant McCaslin is hammering his guys to close this thing out, and they did just that.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, offensive rebound. Texas Tech was really good on the boards in this one, 41-28. I think big picture, James, it's obvious, rebounding is a huge, crucial part of winning games, but it feels like rebounding for some reason is like one of the most important tells in the Big 12 right now in terms of winning and losing basketball games. All right, maybe the most surprising outcome of the night was what happened late last night. Arizona 89, Arizona State 82. And it wasn't surprising that Arizona won, obviously, as they stay undefeated. It was that they only won by 7 over a team they were favored by 21 and a half. And they rode Tobe Awaka. Awaka has been a guy that we've known as more of a defensive stalwart, more of a hustle guy, rebounder, but he had a career night. Awaka, he was fantastic, and so was Koa Pete, the freshman. He had a Cam Boozer esque freshman night last night in terms of scoring and rebounding. And this game was close late. Mo Odom hit a 3 to make it a 2-possession game, but missed the free throw on the next sequence, and then Arizona immediately steadied itself to kind of take control and win the basketball game.
Yeah, this was a game where Arizona State played probably as well as they possibly could have and just didn't quite have enough. Bobby Hurley's done a fantastic job this season with an Arizona State team that talent-wise, they probably don't have the roster that they had last season. But they're more connected. The chemistry is there. Masamba Diop is a problem. I mean, 16 points, 6 rebounds. He continues to get better. He's the 7'1" freshman from Senegal who is incredibly athletic. And if he played at a Kansas or in Arizona or a Duke or a North Carolina, we'd be talking about him as a high-level elite freshman. But he plays at Arizona State, who's 10-7. But they're kind of sneaky, man. Like, their net in the non-conference was top 40. They have some really quality non-conference wins. And if they can play 500 basketball in Big 12, they have a chance to get to the NCAA tournament. Leading by halftime on the road at Arizona, Arizona State played Arizona better than anybody else has in Big 12 play so far.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about what Bobby Hurley's done with that team.
Tobe Awaka, 25 points, 8 of 11 from the field, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, also a block, and was really good. And then, Koa Pete, 24 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, had a steal, had 2 blocks. He was fantastic in this game. And it's hard not to be impressed with Mo Odom. I mean, he's a baller. And, I think that's the difference here, James, is when the ball's in his hands, it's like he's in complete control of the outcome of that possession.
Yeah, he's a really underrated guard in a league of guards. He was a high-level transfer, went 9 of 24 last night, hit 4 threes, 23 points and 7 assists for Arizona State. I want to circle back to your comment about Awaka. Tobe Awaka had his 25 points in 24 minutes. And the biggest stat that stands out to me from his game last night is that he went 1 for 1 from 3. He hit a 3. And he hit a couple of threes in their win a couple of weeks ago against Utah. He's so dominant on the glass that teams are sagging off of him and just kind of camping out of the lane when he has the ball at the top of the key. And now he's knocking down that shot. And if Tobe Awaka hits that top of the key 3 consistently, opponents are done. They're absolutely done because Arizona's so dominant on the glass that you want to sag into the lane and get ready to rebound. And that you've got your 4-man or your 5-man stepping out and canning threes. I mean, that is just one more element to what makes Arizona so good.
BYU 76, TCU 70 last night. AJ DeBonta took over down the stretch of this game when they needed it because this was a very close game. BYU out-rebounded TCU 30-13 in the second half of this game. So, again, rebounding, a huge, crucial component, and BYU completely owned TCU on the glass, especially in the second half. And then free throws, BYU hit 23 of 29. TCU went 12 of 18. So BYU is plus 11 in shot attempts from the foul line and made 11 more as well. And then with 2 minutes left in this game, it was 67-63. And so TCU was close. And then Richie Saunders hit a back-breaking 3 that made it 70-63. That kind of put this out of reach.
And TCU's been one of the best teams at points off of turnovers the last 2 seasons, but last night it was BYU that had their way with the points off turnovers and the fast break points. A.J. DeBonta did not shoot the ball well, especially in the first half. He got off to a really slow start, and I think the physicality of TCU bothered him. But in the second half, he adjusted. He finishes with a quiet 25. The free throws were huge. Like, BYU's not normally the team that wins games at the foul line because they're more finesse-based, kind of like Texas Tech. But last night, they had to be the more physical team, and they were. So just to see BYU win a game in this manner adds one more layer and one more element to how dominant they can be, especially at home. A really nice win for the Cougars.
All right, more on these games coming up. On the way next, though, Nick Schultz, who's a college football and basketball NIL sports reporter for On3 Sports, joins us next. With James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, exclusively on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Avery Johnson.
Here are the top assists from last night's action.
There's a North Dakota transfer. Eagles staff trying to work off the bounce against Utah. Nice pass. And a bounce pass down low for a stuff.
How good is that?
Carr. Good skip pass. Agbib for three, and the Baylor Bears have caught fire early in Stillwater. And Baylor continues their torrid pace, now 8 for 9. They've scored on every possession. Roy flips it to Fowler. Fowler, power dribble, and a finesse finish with the left. That's what he does.
Well, they pressure the ball. They're very good in help side, and they make it really difficult to run clean offense. But Kansas has run really clean offense to start this game.
Inside, Manning drops it off. Nice cut by McGriff and a better finish.
Yes, he is absolutely on fire. They got to make sure they continue to find that young man.
Well, if there's going to be an answer, it's going to be Haggerty. Lob, bang! Devin Cambridge shot out of a cannon.
Southpaw Johnson, an awkward-looking shot, a quick possession for Colorado, who hasn't scored in 2.5 minutes. The alley-oop to Miller.
Good finish by Baba. We're a full line change. We're going 5 wide here for Cincinnati.
Traore, nice pass. Brown with the finish.
That's what I'm saying. Traore gets into the paint. Christian Anderson does a good job of defending him, but there's the turn of the head on the weak side.
Nice pass. Dribovich, and he buries it. His second triple tonight.
Down low, Edmonds catches and scores.
Big 12 Radio, we are presented by Modelo on this Thirsty Thursday. That's also a Three Things Thursday, but should be a Thirsty Thursday because we're getting closer to the weekend. We got the divisional playoffs in the NFL, and somebody that's as excited about the divisional playoffs as I am, Nick Schultz from On3 Sports, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Nick's the college football, basketball, NIL sports reporter for On3, one of many. What's going on, Nick? How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. How are we doing today?
Doing well. And yeah, I mean, On3, I think, does such a great job of covering NIL and having a lot of reporters and staffers associated with NIL coverage, in college sports. So let's start with the transfer portal news. The news that that the transfer portal in college basketball has been moved to the open for 15 days following the national championship game on both the men's and women's side. This seems like the right move, and quite frankly, Nick, probably seems like the right move for all sports.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those, oh, why doesn't every sport do this? And I mean, we can talk about that all day, but with basketball, it's now a big change because last year it opened after the round of 32. So now you can get through the NCAA tournament and you can get the national championship gets done for men on a Monday, and whoever wins, congratulations, happy for you. Transfer portal opens at midnight. So now you get a 2-week window after the national championship. I think for men's, it's April 7th through 21st. For the women's, it's April 6th through 20th. This recommendation came down in November, and it became official this week at the NCAA convention. So that's where we're at in basketball. Once you get used to the transfer portal window, it changes. And this one just feels like it's going to fit better in like the overall calendar being after March Madness, after the national championships.
Nick, you guys at On3 are the best when it comes to recruiting rankings, and it's always easy to navigate. We're going through a series right now of all 16 Big 12 schools and their transfer portal additions and subtractions. In the transfer portal, it seems like almost everybody's a 3-star. When you guys are doing your stars and like your composite rankings, are you giving guys stars based off of their transfer portal status, like what they did at their last school? Or is it based off of, like, was a guy a 4-star or a 5-star out of high school, and that's why we give him whatever star we do?
So I'm not involved with the rankings and ratings process. I leave that for our database staff and our scouting staff. But as I would understand it, I believe it's based off their performance at their last school.
Okay,
and
cool.
We put in the comparison for like where they were in high school, where they were a 5-star, 4-star, and we had their transfer portal ranking, I believe, is based off their production at the last school. But I'm not involved with that part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's partially a little bit of both. I mean, it's got to be some of the athletic measurables, and then also kind of the production piece. What side of the NIL, Nick, do you mostly specialize in?
I kind of do a little bit of everything I can.
Nice.
My area, I do a lot with TV ratings, and like with the football TV ratings that came down this year, kind of broke those down, compare and contrast with the CFP. I've done some basketball work, but I oversee our NIL newsletter. So I do a little bit of whatever I can. I know anything Pete Nakos does. Ross Dellinger's sports business column dropped right before I came out with you guys. So a little bit of everything going on here. A lot of coffee. I don't think Pete Nakos has slept these last 2 weeks in the transfer portal.
I believe it, man. I believe it. All right, Nick. So break down some of the TV stuff, because the Big 12, like for basketball right now, the Big 12 is all over the place. We've got games on CBS. We've got games on NBC, Sports Network, and Peacock. We've got games on ESPN, games on Fox now.
James, your games are the most least rated games of on the docket. We know. In fact, some of the
rating
returns
last night for Texas Tech, Utah. If you can give me a breakdown, how many households watched it, what they think of my hair. But no, seriously, for football.
But no, seriously, what do they think of my hair?
All American hair gel. But for
I can check
football,
Twitter and help you out, but I'm waiting for full numbers. Won't be until Monday.
Don't do it, please don't, please don't. For football though, like how does the Big 12 shake out over the last couple of seasons? I think I've seen some graphics where like Iowa State and Colorado were the most watched teams last year, which feels weird to me. I guess where's the Big 12 sit, and where do you see in terms of the future of the television space for the Big 12, who's going to the table not too far down the road for that big deal?
Well, I think Brett Yormark did a good job when you talk about the new deal with getting ahead of the the expiration of the deal that was already in place. Because you got, I think you re-up with Fox and ESPN. You've also got the TNT part of it now with the sub-license deal. So it is a lot of fun to keep track of because the NBC component also comes through a sub-license deal. So there's a lot happening with the Big 12 when it comes to where to watch games, and it's really fun to see what channel are they playing on. And as I look here, I kept track of the ratings all year. The most watched Big 12 game I have in front of me was, if I scroll down here, not quite sure where they fell because I've got this listed by most watched, but I know TNT's numbers were up this year. Like when you talk about with their games with the Big 12, I know like JB Long and Mike Golick do a great job with all that. I had the championship game in here somewhere. Big 12 championship game, 9 million viewers, which is kind of in the top 20 most watched games of the year. So it was kind of on par with conference championship weekend and everything going on there. But either way, with what the Big 12 is doing with the networks they're on, the footprint, they're growing the footprint. And that was kind of Brett Yormark's big thing, was he wanted to reach as many people as possible. And you're doing that now with these sub-license deals. And for fans, it's fun to kind of navigate. Am I watching on Peacock? Am I watching on Fox? Am I watching on ESPN? But when you look at the conference itself, look at how many people you're reaching on these different platforms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Are we seeing ratings for these playoff games be sort of commensurate with expectation? Meaning, like, have we seen playoff games be at the height of the ratings relative to the regular season, or are there still regular season games that are outdoing playoff games?
Well, I can tell you the quarterfinal round was really good. The quarterfinal round, ESPN did really well. You had the Rose Bowl, 24 million viewers for the Rose Bowl, and it was a blowout. Like that says enough. And you've got a couple regular season games in here that top the playoff games. Like as I look, Ohio State, Michigan averaged 18.4 million. Let me put that number in perspective. That's more than the Peach Bowl. So you've got 3 playoff games that have outdrawn the regular season. The semifinal round was down from last year, about 2 million viewers each game, but ESPN said viewership still on par with last year's playoff. So they were down a little bit this last round. The quarterfinal round, ESPN did really well. I think they were up like 14% or something after that. So we'll see what happens with this national championship game. Last year's game was down with Notre Dame, Ohio State, with Indiana, Miami. You don't have like that, for lack of a better phrase, blue blood, even though Miami is the U bag is going to be the conversation no matter what happens on Monday. I'm curious to see how that does on Monday TV ratings wise.
Yeah. Nick Schultz, college football, basketball, NIL sports reporter for On3 Sports. Appreciate your time this morning, Nick. Be well, man. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Nick Schultz joining us here, Big 12 Radio. And yeah, James, I mean, I've enjoyed watching your broadcasts on Peacock. In fact, last night, the Inside the Huddle from Peacock I thought was fantastic. They got, at least the one that I caught, a good 15, 20-second clip of Grant McCasland in the huddle, just to get a really good sense of, how he communicates, what he's working on. I mean, it was fantastic.
Dude, it's so cool. And I'd love to give you a little like behind the scenes to how that all works. So, because it's fascinating for me to just sit back and watch it all transpire. So NBC talks to these coaches. This isn't like we need to go through the Big 12 thing, the NCAA. They go and they talk to the teams specifically and ask if they can do that. And every team is a little bit different. Iowa State said, no way. TJ Otzelberger said, absolutely not. So we punted during the Baylor-Iowa State game and didn't show any of that. For last night, Utah said, as long as we're within 15 points, yes, you can do it. Texas Tech said, absolutely. Anytime, just pop in here, right? So in the first half, we were in the Utah huddle. And during the commercial break, they're recording the entire thing. And then they have to piece it together and get it TV ready in a span of about 20 seconds. And it's just amazing to see them do that behind the scenes. But with the Utah Inside the Huddle, the mics weren't picking up Alex Jensen because he's so soft-spoken. And he's very deliberate, and he meets with his assistants, and then he goes into the huddle, which a lot of coaches are doing now. So he only meets with his guys for actually about 30 seconds, and we couldn't hear him. So we had to punt the entire thing. You never heard from the Utah huddle because we couldn't hear what Alex Jensen was saying. It was so loud in that arena that it was drowning him out. With Grant McCasland, it was perfect because he was pissed.
Yeah.
Like Texas Tech wasn't playing their best. Their lead had kind of whittled down to like 10. and you can just see the passion on his face. And he says, they can't guard us. And, like, that was the line. And so they put all that together, and we come on the air, and we throw it to the huddle, and there was a miscommunication with that because, you know, I asked, do I need to tee this up? Like, do I need to say we're going inside the huddle? And they tell me to do that, but then we come back, and it's Grant right away. And so it was I'm glad that it worked out really well on television because, like, it gave me goosebumps and chills just being there and hearing what he's saying to his guys. It's just like another layer, and it reminds me kind of what TNT was doing for football with the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a little thing that I think really, like, emphasizes these coaches in the Big 12 and highlights what they're doing with their teams.
Yeah, no, well said. It's really interesting too to note, you know, who says yes and who says no. And I get it. I mean, I get the reasons to say no. You know, I don't know how useful the information would be in real time, but, you know, I'm sure some coaches look at it and say any information is useful at any time. So, you know, we're not going to provide that, but just as a consumer, it's incredible television. It's extremely compelling. And, you know, again, like we talk to these coaches, we have a good sense of them. We have decent relationships with them, and it just gives you another, like, not just for us, but for fans, like a perspective on their coach. Because a lot of times, you know, if you're a fan of a team, you don't really get to see and interact with coaches in the way that the media does, or the way that, obviously, the way the team does. So to get that perspective is just such a unique perspective. I wish more coaches would have that perspective of, like, this is really cool for fans that never get to see you.
Right. And it highlights their personality. It highlights their coaching style. And it just makes you feel like you're part of that environment and like you're there.
Yeah.
Right. And every coach is so different just in the way that they interact with not just fans and their players, but even like me calling a game. You know, some coaches at shoot around, we'll chat a little bit after shoot around, and like for TJ Altsberger, because I record every conversation on my phone so I can go back and listen to it at the hotel. And like my chat with TJ Altsberger was 3.5 minutes, right? Grant McCasland, and I'm not saying there's no right or wrong way to do this.
Right.
But then Grant McCasland, he sat with Tom and I for the entire hour during shoot around. Like, he barely spoke to his team. He kind of got them lined up, and they went through a couple of things towards the tail end. But he's just chatting away, just so laid back. And I think his players kind of embody that, where they can, like, turn it up a notch when they have to, but also they're just so comfortable on and off the floor and everything that they're doing there in Lubbock.
Well said. All right, that's James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. We've got a lot to get to today, including some interesting comments from new TCU quarterback Ken Seals that he made on the Trevon Boykin podcast. You're not going to want to miss those comments. Plus, on the way next, let's get it on. With James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Here are the top dunks from last night's action.
There's a North Dakota transfer, Eagles staff trying to work off the bounce against Houston. And a bounce pass down low for a stuff.
How good is 10th turnover for Baylor. Whew. And stolen in the open floor. Here's Yesufu. Highlight coming. Rocks the rim. Well, they pressure the ball. They're very good in help side, and they make it really difficult to run clean offense. But Kansas has run really clean offense to start this game with 4 steals in the first half. They're up 21 without Darren Peterson really going off, and a much crisper start to the second half.
Brothers absolutely on fire. They got to make sure they continue to find that young man.
Well, if there's going to be an answer, it's going to be Haggerty. Lob, bang! Devin Cambridge shot out of a cannon. C.J. Jones.
Oh, great pass by Jones.
McGriff rams it home off the great feed.
Excellent pass by Jones, and McGriff throwing it down.
One transfer in the team. He really gives them something. He's playing with that aggression right now. His teammates have to meet it. Whoa.
How about Miller from the rafters? Petty no. Offensive rebound, Toppin to the cutter. It's Anderson, drops it off the table for a slam.
But you can't step into the defender.
Quick hands by Brown, ahead of the pack, and a dunk.
I believe is probably the best front court in America.
Odom, the Pepperdine transfer.
Oh.
He lobs. I don't know if that was intentional or not. What do you say?
I don't know
Johnson
either.
And look at his work on Mo Krivas down low.
The lob. Oh, watch out. High above the rim.
And Modelo fan rules, the Modelo's full-time fan rules. And I'm going today with rule number 22. If you traveled more than 10 miles to the stadium, you get to complain the most.
That's so true. So true. And do you get to complain the most about what's happening on the field or on the court?
Yes.
Or do you get to complain
Yes.
more about traffic?
Everything. Traffic, how far you had to travel, the game, everything. You just get full autonomy to complain once you're 10 miles outside that window. That is 100% how it is. All right. Each and every week, we do a segment called Let's Get It On, a la Mills Lane, the Let's Get It On! Legendary boxing official. Our producer, T-Chains, Taman Turner, gives us topics, and then we have to argue either side depending on who takes the first side of that argument. Taman, what do you have for us today?
All right, my first topic, guys, is Iowa State in the same league as Arizona and Houston after their blowout loss to the Kansas Jayhawks at Allen Fieldhouse?
James, you can take this one.
Yeah, great topic and great question. I don't think that they are at this point in time. We can look at what they did in the non-conference, but what happens in the non-conference, to me, doesn't matter as much as what happens in league play. And the bottom line is Iowa State got thumped at Allen Fieldhouse. And I know that Kansas shot the cover off the ball, but Iowa State was never in any type of foul trouble. They had all 5 starters on the floor the majority of the night. They just weren't very good. They turned the ball over a bunch. They couldn't make shots. Joshua Jefferson couldn't finish around the rim, and they couldn't guard at the level that it takes to win Big 12 championships. And if Arizona or Houston went into Allen Fieldhouse, they might not win the game in that setting and against a really hungry Kansas team, but I don't think they lose by 20. So, no, I don't think Iowa State is in the same league right now as Arizona and Houston in the conference.
Wow. So I guess let me ask you this here, James. So you think Arizona's going to go undefeated this year? They're going to be an undefeated national champion? Is that what you're arguing here? No slip ups for Arizona, no expectation of any type of losses, tough road environments, Allen freaking Fieldhouse. No, Arizona's going to go completely unblemished.
I hear you. But I think there is a difference between losing at Allen Fieldhouse and losing by 20 and being down by as many as 30 and not even competing in Allen Fieldhouse. That game was over at the first media timeout, and Darren Peterson had barely touched the ball. I don't think an Arizona or a Houston would find themselves in that spot.
Believe me, as a Kansas fan watching that game, I did not feel like it was over after the first media timeout. In fact, my 7-year-old at one point close to halftime goes, "Oh, I think Kansas is going to win this game. Kansas is definitely going to win this game." And I looked at him and I go, "Shush." And then I said to my wife, "Take him out, get rid of him."
All right, but before you go, let me just ask James this one question in response to that. Is it possible that Iowa State is in the same league as Arizona and Houston? They just came up against a very desperate Kansas team that needed to go all out to win the game.
James, Tammy, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like you're telling me Arizona's going to go unblemished. They're not going to have any slip ups like that. This stuff happens. I think Iowa State is very much in the same league as look. I think there's a top tier in the Big 12 right now. I think it's clearly Iowa State, BYU, Arizona, and Houston. Houston maybe more so because they're the champ. 2 straight Big 12 championships. They started in the Big 12 1-2. Their first year in the Big 12, they started 1-2 in Big 12 play. Okay, they pretty much haven't lost since then. I mean, they have 2 losses in the Big 12, and that includes Big 12 tournament in those, basically since then. So Houston, if anybody is in their own league, and even despite Arizona's great start, they've got to play catch up more so than anybody else. I don't see it. I think it was an off night for Iowa State, a team that was feeling really good about itself, and a desperate Kansas team at Allen Fieldhouse. That's what I attribute that loss to.
So you do still think Arizona, Houston, BYU, Iowa State, those 4 are like log jammed together, neck and neck?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I've got Arizona and Houston a tick above. I think there's a little bit of separation between those top 2 teams and BYU and Iowa State.
All right. Well, it'll be fun to see what happens next. All right, guys. My next topic, it still involves the Kansas Jayhawks, and I'm going to take a spin from Eminem. Will the real Kansas Jayhawks please stand up? So, who are the real Kansas Jayhawks? Are they the one who played against West Virginia, or are they the ones who played against Iowa State?
Easy answer here. They're neither. And I'll steal from our friend Fran Fraschilla, who talks about this every year in college basketball. You can never judge a team based on their top 3 wins and their top 3 losses. And I would say so far for this season, West Virginia is probably the worst loss. And that's not to say anything about West Virginia, just simply how Kansas played in that game. And then the opposite end of the spectrum is the Iowa State game, that they looked as good as they've ever looked. I would say, will the real Jayhawks please stand up? They're probably a lot closer to the Iowa State Jayhawks than they are to the West Virginia Jayhawks. So, James, I'm going to make you argue that Kansas is horrible and terrible and the worst, closer to West Virginia. But I don't know how able Kansas will be to duplicate that performance from the Iowa State game. That was just a team playing with its hair on fire, desperate need of a win, not starting 1-3 conference play, in the friendly confines of Allen Fieldhouse. But I think they certainly get much closer resemble that team than the West Virginia team that they played, that the way Kansas played on Saturday. Easy for me to say.
Yeah, I guess I should ask the house rules on this segment. Do I have to disagree with Ari on these segments?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I got
Is
it.
this your first time? Do you even let's get it on, bro?
Have you been on this show before? Okay.
You ever been to a boxing ring and see somebody be like, "Do I have to punch him?" Or
all right. So let me go back to last year then, because Kansas beat Iowa State, albeit it was early February, so it was a few weeks, a little bit deeper into the season than we are now. but Iowa State was ranked number 8 in the country. I believe they were favored in that game. Kansas was outside the top 25. And KU beat them very similar fashion, 69-52. Iowa State never looked like they even belonged on the floor with Kansas in that game. So we thought Kansas was back, right? Well, then Kansas turned around and they lost to K-State. They lost to Utah. They lost to BYU. They got beat by Texas Tech and Houston. They barely beat UCF at home. They barely beat UCF in the Big 12 tournament. Got thumped by Arizona, and then a first-round exit. So after the Iowa State win last year, Kansas didn't even play 500 basketball the rest of the season. They lost 3 of their next 4. They lost 6 of their next 9. So my argument would be that this could very much be just a flash from KU being hungry, being desperate, having the home crowd behind them, and they really haven't fixed anything. Because this time last year we sat here and we said, oh, they got it figured out. Dickinson's sharing the basketball and getting to the foul line, and DeJuan Harris can finally shoot, and KJ Adams is getting healthier, and that wasn't the case.
So how is that similar to this year? None of those guys are on the team this year. I don't know if you know this. None of those guys are on the team this year.
What I'm saying is we can't say that Trey White has figured things out offensively, that this team with Melvin Cancel and Darren Peterson on the floor know how to play together, and Flory Badunga is going to make all those half hooks in the lane, and they're going to have Jamari McDowell coming off the bench and have a plus-minus of 25 the rest of the year based off of one game alone. This team could very much go back to being the Kansas that we saw at UCF and at West Virginia.
Take a bow, James. I hate you, but that was great. All right, and that's the next one.
All right, guys. The next one. Okay, so if the NBA draft were to happen tonight, the Indiana Pacers would very likely have the number 1 pick. So if you, Ari, or you, James, are the Indiana Pacers, who are you picking as the number 1 pick? Will it be Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonta?
Go ahead, James.
Well, I'm taking A.J. DeBonta. Number 1, I think he's going to be the better NBA player. Number 2, I think he's the better player all around right now because he's so underrated defensively. And Darren Peterson doesn't play defense because he's worried about his cramps. And I want to hear Ari make a case for taking Darren Peterson. That's really the number 1 headline here. I won't bury the lead. I might as well just toss to him. But no, I'm taking A.J. DeBonta. Like, this guy is a 6'10" ball-handling guard who can do everything. He can hit threes when you need a basket in a very space-oriented BYU offense. He gets it. And at the NBA, he's going to be a 25 per game, 30 per game guy right away. He's got the right people around him. He's very locked in. He's a hooper. He's on the floor almost 40 minutes a night. A.J. DeBonta is the dude.
Yeah, if the NBA draft were tonight and I were the Indiana Pacers, I would say, why are we having the draft tonight? We need to wait for the rest of the college basketball season to end so that we could have a better sense of all of these players, because this is an incomplete sample and an incomplete season. James, do you know who the president of basketball operations for the Indiana Pacers is?
Is it Larry Bird?
No. It's been a while. That was 20 years ago.
Possibly even 25 years ago.
I'll give you another guess.
Yeah,
How familiar are you with the 1988 Kansas Jayhawks national championship team?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar. Is it Kevin Pritchard?
Kevin Pritchard, the former Kansas Jayhawk, is the director of basketball operations for the Indiana Pacers. So you want to see me make the case for why Indiana would take Darren Peterson, the Kansas Jayhawk, number 1 overall. Well, how about their president of basketball operations is a Jayhawk? So while he's not going to let that skew his decision-making, I can imagine he's watched a lot more KU basketball this year than he's watched of anybody else. And I would imagine in an interview one-on-one with Darren Peterson to Kevin Pritchard, Peterson might say something along the lines of, yeah, I really did not want to overextend myself this season and was dealing with a few things that I wanted to make sure I was back fully healthy before that I really, before I really took the Band-Aids off here. So I can imagine in a one-on-one interview, Darren Peterson will kill it with his answers and why the season's gone the way that it has. And by the way, I don't know if you watched the game the other night, but as we just discussed, like that's moving forward. Darren Peterson's minutes aren't even going to become a subplot to this season. He's not going to play at the end of games. They're going to be beating teams by 20. It's going to be great. Wouldn't it be a thing?
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's a stretch for Ari just because of a Kansas Jayhawk alum running the Pacers, but that's just my thoughts. But
okay, so do you not think Peterson will be the first overall pick? He is, if I'm making a legitimate case here, he is the king of efficiency. Okay. He is playing very few minutes and maximizing those minutes with insane scoring numbers. And so, on top of that, his ability to ball handle, the smoothness, like you can basically take your team and run your offense through him. And I think with the Pacers specifically, with Tyrese Halliburton coming back next year, like these are similar players that can play off of each other because of their ability to create for others. Peterson, I think, is very underrated as a passer and as somebody that can find, open players. So for me, that's it. It comes down to if I'm pairing him with Tyrese Halliburton, that makes a ton of sense here more than anybody else.
No, you're not wrong. And the thing about this year's NBA draft, which, man, it will give us plenty to talk about in June, because this is going to be one of the all-timers. This might be the deepest NBA draft of our lifetime. No joke. And you look at the last two drafts, they've been weak, man. Like after Cooper Flagg, you had Dylan Harper going from Rutgers, Con Knuppel from Duke, Ace Bailey from Rutgers was a top 5 pick.
No, you're right.
Jeremiah Fears was number 7 from Oklahoma. There are 10 to 15 guys that are plug-and-play starters in the NBA right now playing college basketball, and there might be 8 to 10 in the Big 12. When you think about the freshmen, you think about JT Toppin, Christian Anderson are going to be pros. Tom Crean was just – who does a lot for NBA teams. He was just all about JT Toppin and Christian Anderson for Tech. And then – you've got like 7 or 8 freshmen in this league that are elite guys that are top 10 quality players. Like it is a deep, deep draft.
Big 12 radio. That's a little let's get it on. Big 12 today, powered by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. On the way next, you are not going to want to miss what Ken Seals said on the Trevon Boykin podcasts. Not sure that Ken Seals will be this open ever again. But he was open about, a lot of things going on within TCU, specifically relative to Josh Hoover. We'll get into all that next and hear what Ken Seals had to say. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Cincinnati in the white uniforms with the black trim, and Colorado in the road black uniforms. Dallin, Tad Boyle told his team pregame that Cincinnati is like a wounded animal. There's Barrington Hargress, the lone D1 transfer, and he threw it away. 4 straight turnovers on Colorado. Harris again.
One transfer in the team. He really gives them something. He's playing with that aggression right now. His teammates have to meet it.
Whoa. Miller from the rafters.
Scoring, rebounding, and then you lose him. They were building a lot around him. Then he got hurt at the end of October.
Celestine rips it away into the pocket of Jizzle. Baba Miller and 1. Gets his own rebound. The Sanders cleaned up the miss. Sanders thought about the 3, drives with the left hand, finishes strong at the rim.
But if you're not going to defend, how can you? If you're not going to make shots, how do you affect the game in other ways? Defending is the key one.
Isaiah Johnson, a pull-up 3.
Hey, sometimes you want to help people out. You have to help her do your job.
There's Johnson. Cincinnati trying to put a win on the board in Big 12 play for the first time this year. Baba Miller already has 20 points, make it 22. 7-point lead. Colorado needs to act quick. Johnson with the left hand off the glass and in.
Just a sick hesitation to go. The second free throw. You got to want to take the fight. You got to want to accept the physicality.
Last-second heave from Bengon Dak. Not good. As Cincinnati wins it 77.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today. We are presented by our friends at Modelo on this Thirsty Thursday with James Westling. I am Ari Temkin. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. You can listen to us on TuneIn, watch on Big 12 Studios. The game of the week, BYU at Texas Tech. Big one on Saturday in Lubbock at United Supermarkets Arena. Saturday, January 17th, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. You can catch that game as a part of TuneIn and Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. If you don't yet have the TuneIn app, make sure to download the TuneIn app. Search Big 12. Make sure to like the channel. That way it shows up each and every time you open up the app, and you'll have access, voila, to all of the games of the week, including this big one, the banger, BYU and Texas Tech on Saturday. All right, James. Ken Seals is taking over at quarterback for TCU this year. Josh Hoover leaves and goes to Indiana, who's on the precipice of winning a national championship. So how about that? Hoover could be taking over at quarterback in Indiana for a Heisman Trophy winner and potential undefeated national champion. So good luck. Talk about high expectations for Josh Hoover in Indiana. My goodness. But I digress. Ken Seals is a guest on the Trevon Boykin podcast. Boykin, of course, the former TCU quarterback. And let's hear what he had to say.
Well, me and Josh I mean, I feel like it's probably a lot like you and Bram. Like, we were close. Yeah. Like, especially, there's a lot of things that happened with him and Chandler, and I think they had not as great a relationship. It was somewhat toxically competitive between them. I think. Because I think Chandler was doing things like behind Josh's back to try and like get a leg up on him. Or like, I don't know, you can, coordinate throwing sessions or meetings with receivers or talk to coaches and then never let the other guy know you're doing something. Yeah. And then just saying certain things. So I think Josh was a little bit like more like protected against stuff like that. And so whenever I came in, it's not like we ever had to like work through any of that. He never blamed me, but I kind of knew what was going on. So I kind of made an effort to like, hey, like we're cool. Like we're competing for the job. At least, that's what they told me. Like, hey, we want someone to come compete, push this guy. Yeah. And I was like, well, shoot, I'll come compete. No, that's all I need is a chance. And, so anyways, we were always cool, and we hung out a lot. Like we had Thanksgiving together, and nothing weird. But there was a lot of people. We had like 40 people over there. It was a large hater food. No, okay. Yeah, everyone brought a dish. All right. You can push it. So anyways, but whenever it started going down, he kind of like told me, like, hey, because I had asked him a couple weeks, before he made his decision public. I asked him, like, look, man, I got no more eligibility. I got no dog in the fight. I just want to know, like, are you coming back next year? And I can kind of tell that he was like mentally checking out a little bit, not checking out, but more so just like you can tell he was. And why was you? What makes you say that? When you say he's. What do you think? Because how the season went? Not maybe not how the season went. Like because we ended up beating Houston, beating Cincinnati at the end of the year, and so like things were on paper like doing well. At one point, we were like 6-4, and things looked rough. For a minute, like if we had lost another, like we didn't know what was going to happen. I can see. I think Danny would have been on the hot seat. Just so because he was on it. He was on the hot seat for sure. At one point, I mean, we thought I'm not in college anymore. Yeah. But at one point, I think it was after the BYU game. I think Coach Dykes and Coach Browse were talking outside the bus for a while. Yeah. And they came on like 20 minutes after everyone was on the bus, and that's as soon as they got on, we took off, and we thought we saw our media guy like clearing out Brow's iPad, and so like me and Josh in the back of the bus, like, dude, like. They just fired Browse, and they like just wiped his stuff like on his iPad right there in front of us. And so it was like there was a little bit of like he ended up not being fired after that. I don't know what happened with the iPad, but we saw him delete everything. Yeah. But so anyways, we knew that things were like tense at the time, and I think there was stuff going on like behind the door with Hoove and coaches, administration, things like that. He wasn't happy with, and so he felt weird even being in the facility going to practice because behind the door he's having these like tough conversations with people where they're pissed off, he's pissed off, and it's like kind of like And was it mainly about football, or you think it was about something that had nothing to do with it? It was both. Both. Yeah, it was both. And I think whenever he showed up to practice and all these people that, he was, talking to and stuff like going at it, they started, acting like buddy, like, hey man, like, how you doing? Yeah. Like acting like nothing happened. Right. And so it was messing with him. Weird. It was weird. And, I didn't find that out until I asked him, and he's like, yeah, man, I just don't think that the goals that I have or want to accomplish can happen at TCU because he wanted more than anything wanted to go take TCU to a Big 12 championship. Yeah. And I think he thought that, in terms of like coaching, administration, and the way that the program was headed, just didn't think that was going to happen.
Hey, Ari, you are muted.
All right. So a lot there from Ken Seals. And I mean, let's start with number one, Chandler Morris sucks. Can I just say that?
Yeah.
I mean, Ken Seals basically was saying that, like, yeah, when he came in, they're competing, he and Josh Hoover, but like totally different than the toxic competition that he said that Chandler Morris and Josh Hoover had, like basically saying like Morris would organize like throwing sessions with receivers and then not tell Hoover, which is just something that's just just not what you do. Even in the spirit of competition, you're still teammates trying to make each other better. And it sounds like Chandler Morris was not about that. Um, Also, we find out that it sounds like Kendall Briles was nearly fired after the BYU loss for TCU. It sounds like, at least he got close based on observations that Ken Seals and Josh Hoover made. And then lastly, that Josh Hoover left TCU because he felt he couldn't win a championship. One, and two, because of disagreements he had with the coaching staff vis-a-vis money and scheme.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, is that a fair assessment of what we just heard in 4 minutes from Ken Seals?
Very much so. And this is a great behind the curtain look at everything. I don't want to say that's wrong because I don't think it's unavoidable in college football. But what I'm trying to say is the players on these football teams are very much as they try to silo them and keep them in their bubble with social media, with the fans being able to engage with and interact with players and coaches more so now than ever before. These guys are very aware of what's happening around them. And to hear Ken Seals talk about him and Hoover and their conversations about the coaches being on the hot seat and knowing that, hey, if we don't win these last couple of games, that could be it for this staff. These guys know what's at stake. These guys are just as much in tune with their coach's future as much as we are, as much as the fans are. And Chandler Morris does sound like a turd, and I can see why at North. He transferred from TCU to North Texas, and he had one really good year at North Texas. And I remember Eric Morris being like, yeah, he's probably not going to be back next year. And now I can see why. That was probably a mutual parting for them. And they go with Drew Mestamaker, and he's fantastic. But then also the Briles stuff and just the tension within the staff, which that's not something that doesn't happen. Like, that's very common at a lot of schools. And even in basketball, a lot of coaches have talked about how important, your staff is, because the head coach can only do so many things. And if your staff isn't on the same page, not just internally, but also with the players, and if the players see that the staffs are not on the same page, that trickles down to the team and to the players. And all of that drama and pettiness can just be magnified week over week and build up, and it explains why a lot of teams struggle that you think are going to be really good on paper. It's not as simple as the X's and O's and the Jimmy and Joes. There's a whole nother element to it, and this is a great look behind the scenes at what took place in Fort Worth.
Yeah, well said. It also seems like Josh Hoover, is an excuse guy. Like the idea here of, none of what happened at the end of the year not being his responsibility. I mean, there were games where, like, I think it's pretty obvious that had, Hoover made some more plays, they would have won. Like, there's some bad interceptions, bad turnovers that he had at the end of games. Like, this is the kind of stuff where it's like, man, you hope this guy would take some semblance of responsibility. Hoover's a big time talent. I think, like, if Indiana's recruiting you, it's for good reason. I mean, Indiana has a proven track record of success these last 2 years at a high level. So he's a really good quarterback, but like, things went south for him at times. And it's like last year in games, he is in many ways as responsible for the record as anybody else is, coordinator, coach, or anybody. And so it sounds like there's sort of an unwillingness to take that responsibility. And like, the relationship clearly deteriorated between Hoover and Dykes and the program, to where he's saying like there's just a lot of drama that was sort of, overlooked, and not overlooked, but rather like, oh yeah, they appear to be on good terms on the surface level, but clearly like behind the scenes, there's a lot boiling over. I'm sure Hoover went and asked for a specific amount of money, and they might have been ready to move on. All in all, it feels like TCU's in much better hands now, and like, I'm super excited to see what Ken Seals brings. It sounds like he's just the right dude for the job at this point in time. I'm sure there's gonna be a slap on the wrist for him being this open, because this is making huge headlines now across, TCU fan pages and with TCU fans. But I think, to your point, like, really good insight into the inner workings. But like, my biggest takeaway here is, aside from like the Chandler Morris stuff, is that, Hoover is not one that's going to take responsibility, it appears, for some of the way things went down at the end of last year, which were very much his fault.
Yeah, if this was an audition for Ken Seals to be at Big 12 football media days next year, I think he failed. Safe to say he won't be joining us next year at the Star in Frisco. But
Well, and if he is, we got to make sure to ask him about his thoughts on and his relationship with Josh Hoover.
The thing I love about it is he didn't really throw anybody under the bus. Like, he other than Chandler Morris, who is 3 years departed from the program and an afterthought at this point. But everything he said came to fruition. Like Kendall Briles got shown the door, the offensive coordinator, now at South Carolina. They bring in an old school guy in Gordon Samus from UConn who's going to be run first. It's going to be the Denver Broncos, late 90s, early 2000s, zone read, rushing attack. Your quarterback is a game manager, which is a great fit for Ken Seals. And then even the stuff he said about Hoover, none of that is surprising to me. Josh Hoover is a guy that had this big social media announcement for him coming back to TCU last year, and he wanted to make it very clear that he turned down multiple high-dollar offers from other programs to be the guy.
Great point.
At TCU.
I forgot about that. You're totally right about that.
Like, hey, I said no to Tennessee. I said no to Tennessee, guys. They were offering me twice as much. Okay, I am king at TCU, and I would have liked to have seen him take a little bit more responsibility, but to be mentally checked out after the season, that rubs me the wrong way, frankly. Like, these are still your teammates. These are still your brothers. And Ken Seals, he might be a dude next year because just his aura, his energy, his pedigree, the way he talks, I'm excited to see what he can do.
All right. Coming up next, Krista Gerlich, the head basketball coach for Texas Tech, as the Lady Raiders are 19-0 and 6-0 in Big 12 play. We'll catch up with the head coach of Texas Tech women's basketball next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here are the top plays from last night's action.
Houston, the last 12 games, they've been under 67 points. On the drive, count it. Nunez as the first quarter comes to an end. Final 9 seconds. Nunez, nice job defensively. Tech will have it. Final 2 seconds at the buzzer. And Bridgestone buries it.
And final 5 seconds here in the opening half. Nichols trying to beat the buzzer. Gets to the hole and does. The drive and the lay-in cuts the margin to 6.
For Marta Suarez, first appearance from Veronica Sheffy, the San Diego State transfer. In the right corner, Harrison, space, drives, nice layup for Jordan Harrison at the buzzer.
Yeah, and that's where Jordan Harrison can be so lethal. If she's the first player out here shooting, that's greatness. That's a player that wants to be great, that is great, and understands how to do it. I think Olivia Miles, if she sees a glimpse on the three-point line, she's taking it. If not, it's get as close as you can for 2.
On a inbound, Silva for 3 and the win. There it is! TCU with the dagger, and it comes from Marta Suarez.
Maya Perry looking, finding the Villasy.
Got on the elevator.
Here is Perry. The 3 on its way is up, and it is in for Maya Perry. The inbounder gets it back and is able to strike.
And Central Michigan hits a big 3. 2 seconds. Wooten's going to put one up. Got the 3 from number 3. Answers the 3 by the Cyclones.
Snead goes over the top of it, cut off by Evans. And Guytonbeek throws back out to Scott. Clock down to 2. Scott backing up, White all over. Fires a long one and hits it. She missed her previous 8 shots.
Along with James Westling, I am Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. And on this Thirsty Thursday, we are so pleased to be joined right now by the head coach of the 17th ranked 19-0 Texas Tech Lady Raiders, Krista Gerlich, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning. I'm so good. How are you guys?
Doing great. Thank you. Always appreciate your time. 19-0, 6-0 in Big 12 play. And I probably don't have to remind you that you are 19-0 at Texas Tech for the first time since the 92-93 season. I'm sure a season that you remember well.
I do. Yes, but we were not 19-0 on that season. We finished 19-0, which is fantastic. But yeah, so it's a little bit different, but crazy how it, how it goes full circle. We finished on a 19-game winning streak, I believe.
Got it. Okay. Then I've got to check my information on where I got your record to start that season. So you guys had some losses to start the year, 92-93?
Oh, we lost our very first one. Yeah, we lost our very first one at Stanford. They were the returning national champions, and we lost on their home floor. But we finished, I think it's a 19-game winning streak is what the stat is.
19-game winning streak since 92-93, a national championship team that, of course, you were a part of. All right, so this year's team, how much of a surprise, and maybe surprise for lack of a better way to put it, but before the season started, you probably felt like you had a good team, but did you think you'd have a team that would be 19-0?
I don't know, definitely not. And not because I didn't think that our team was good enough. You just don't think that far ahead. I mean, literally you work in segments of your season and of your schedule. And I think we looked at our non-conference and said, hey, if we take care of business one game at a time, I think we can be successful. But even then we were going to be able to be tested. I thought we had some games on our schedule that were going to test us and prepare us for the Big 12. And, we were hopeful to be successful in that run. But like even going 13-0, 12-0 in our non-conference obviously is a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I think if you're an opponent and you see Texas Tech and you start 10-0 and 11-0, you get people's attention. But when you start 19-0, all of a sudden you are the hunted. I mean, everybody is out for Texas Tech now. So how have your players, your staff, the mindset of being a 19-0 team and now like you're getting everybody's best shot?
Yeah, for sure we are. I think our kids have done a fantastic job of really just locking in one game at a time. And that's been our mantra the entire time is just we want to be 1-0. Each time we step out on the floor, we want to be 1-0. And we can't get too high. We can't get too low. We can't think about the future too much. It really is the next game on our schedule is our biggest game of the year. And I think that our staff has done a great job of looking at that. We've had these questions asked to us multiple times. When we were 15-0, 16-0, 17-0, everybody's asking us that, and I have the same answer. I have the same answer. I'm like, we want to win the next one. That's the only thing that's on our mind right now is winning the next one. But I do say that we are telling our kids, that now you've got to really perform really well, or be at least prepared and make sure that your intensity levels at the right level every time you step out on the floor, because you are going to get the opponent's very best shot. And I'm not sure that this program has been used to that in a very long time.
Yeah. And I guess, from your vantage point, like, did you feel heading into the season, the pressure to be a tournament team this year, the pressure to win because of how the first couple of years have gone for you at Texas Tech? Did you feel that pressure before the season?
I think I've put that pressure on myself every year. I mean, because that's been the goal since I got the job, was to get us back in the tournament. And, we've been in the postseason twice, not in the NCAA, but we've been in the postseason, and that's 2 times more than they had in the last 15 years. And so we definitely were making the right strides, but there's no doubt that we want to be in the big dance and we want to get back in the talks of the top 25 and, in the nation and being a regular. So I think there was definitely pressure that I've put on myself since I took the job.
Yeah, and you had to go through COVID early on during your tenure at Texas Tech, and that'll set anybody back. And then it's just been, to me, your teams have gotten a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And even towards the tail end of last year, you won, 5 of your last 7 games and played in the postseason. So what signs did you see? What are like the little things that you knew you were on the right track?
Yeah, I felt like and not to make excuses or anything, but like when we took the job in August of COVID, right, of 2020, we literally had to coach what was in our locker room, because it was August and it was that time of year, right? And then we didn't even get to go off campus that first year to recruit. So for 2 years we recruited off of videos. And that's really hard to do, to be able to compete at the level that we wanted to compete at. But I did feel like every year we did something that the team before us hadn't done. I mean, every single year we had a lot of injuries. We've always been very thin in the point guard position, and I feel like that's been our biggest Achilles the entire time that I've been here. And that's a personal thing for me, because I have to be really connected to the point guard. I got to be able to have the right type of fit there, and I just haven't had that. And so I've had to make my daughter the point guard. Then I had to make Bailey Maupin the point guard. And this year we have Hema Nunez, and she has really been, I think, the biggest difference is that we have a natural, true point guard that's really connected and is allowing the rest of our talent to be themselves and to let them show up or step up. So I think we've grown in that area. It's just, we kind of live in the microwave era of we want instant gratification, and we just haven't been able to turn it around like that, like other schools have been able to through the transfer portal. But I think now we finally are there.
Do you have Bryn on staff now?
No, she's in physical therapy school.
Good for
She's
her.
in the stands every day, though. Every game she's in the stands.
Didn't want to go to coaching, huh?
She did not.
Playing for you was enough.
I guess so. Yes, I must have ruined it for her. I don't know, but she is definitely our biggest fan, and I'm pretty sure she does quite a bit of coaching from the stands,
Sure.
from what I hear.
So did you guys ring in the new year with Black Eyed Peas?
So, funny story about that is that I'm a huge believer in that every year. And last year we were on the road and we're having a really good year. And we start, I believe, at Arizona State. And I actually made my team eat a spoonful of Black Eyed Peas. And we went on like a 9-game skid or something. And so this year I was like, nope, not doing it. Like, we're not being superstitious. We're just not doing it. Like, we're just going to roll with what we're doing. So no Black Eyed Peas right now in 2026.
Hang on. There's got to be a backstory here that I'm missing. What's with the Black Eyed Peas? I thought we were talking like I Got a Feeling. I thought we were going to concerts. What's happening?
You're clearly not from Texas. That's so funny. Or from the South, I guess. As Black Eyed Peas on New Year's Day gives you good luck for the year.
Okay,
James?
This is born and raised in Kansas, new to the area. Okay, I know.
I had a couple of people on my staff that didn't know that as well. So anyway, it was fine. But I will tell you this: there's not a lot of people that like Black Eyed Peas.
Right.
I make a mean pot of Black Eyed Peas, so I will have Black Eyed Peas. We just did not have them in a superstitious way on New Year's Day.
What's the difference between? What do you do with your Black Eyed Peas? Is it like a family recipe, family secret here?
Well, I mean, kind of a family secret, but bacon grease. Bacon does everything. Bacon makes everything better.
It does. In fact, we always keep like a vat of bacon grease on hand just to add
it. Makes everything better.
It does. Bacon grease is bacon just makes the world go round. I don't think there's any question about that. It's amazing.
We got diverted a little.
Do you have any updates? So you've added at semester the tallest player in the history of women's college basketball, 7'1" center, Stephanie Okachuka.
Oh, pretty good.
Okachuku from Nigeria, 7'1", tallest player ever in women's college basketball. You have any updates on her, and when the NCAA may make a ruling on her eligibility?
Well, so the NCAA has been fantastic, and they have ruled initially with what we gave them. But there's a little bit of back history with her academic transcripts and so we're having to just make sure that we sent some things back to them just to clarify, because we don't want there any
Right.
reason that we would jeopardize the team that's what our team is doing right now. So they're working really diligently with us, and I think we're really close at just figuring out if she can truly play this semester. We're still very hopeful that she can, but she definitely is going to be playing at Texas Tech, for the next couple of years for sure.
And that, I mean, you're 19-0 and you could be adding the tallest player ever in history of the sport. That's kind of amazing, right? Like,
I know it is. I know. Sometimes I'm like, pinch me, or don't wake me up. Don't wake me up. But yeah, she would be a huge, no pun intended, but a huge addition to what we're doing. And she's already fit in great. She's getting to practice a little bit and started classes yesterday. So it's been a whirlwind for her for sure.
what is she like? Give us a sense of her game. Is she a rebounding shot blocking
Oh,
machine?
she can block shots like crazy. If you see her clips on YouTube, I mean, like it's crazy, and really can grab the ball out of the air and huge hands, huge hands. She's got really soft hands and really great touch around the basket. 7'4" wingspan and every bit of it. She can drop step dunk, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's going to really be able to take our team to a different level. And we'll see. But I was really, really pleased with her range and her ability to shoot the basketball.
How did you find her? Like where was she playing before, and how did you get connected with her?
Yeah. So this summer, she was known because several schools in the Big 12 recruited her too. So people were knew about her. But as people started doing a deeper dive, they weren't sure if they could get her in the country. And that was been the biggest issue the entire time. She'd been denied a couple of times already. And so her visa was just something that somebody really had to be committed and work on with it. And so we knew about her and we visited with her in the summer, and then she was already committed to another school. And so we let it drop. And then in September, her camp actually reached back out to us because I guess that other school didn't think that they could get her in the country. So they released her. We said, we think we can. And we signed her in October, actually. But we did keep it under the radar because we just didn't want there to be a lot of hoopla and then we not ever get her out into the country. But December 31st, which was right on the deadline, to be honest, just because of the different things that are being passed through the Trump administration for Nigeria. December 31st, we got her visa and she got in the country that night, and it was incredible. And she had been denied 3 times. And so she was not feeling very confident, but we just did the work. And there was a lot of work that went into it. We've learned a lot about immigration law, and I still wouldn't be able to talk intelligently about it. But Eric DeRue on my staff is the one that took the bull by the horns and said, I think I can get this done. And he did a lot of educational things. He did a lot of talking, got the right people on board. And I will tell you this, Texas Tech has a lot of alum that are really supportive, and obviously that know the right people that can help us, that were able to help us be able to get that visa approved.
That's awesome. Incredible story.
Yeah. She's an incredible young lady too. Just a great heart, very, very grateful to be here. Very joyful. She's been fantastic with her teammates. She's a lot of fun.
And where was she playing?
So she's out of high school. She's out of high school. So she literally just trains, and like she had moved to Japan to go to high school and played high school ball in Japan, which is kind of funny because that's why all her clips look so outrageous, because clearly a lot of people in Japan are pretty small. So she's really, I mean, it's like she's playing against children. But so she has not played in college. And so she was just a high school recruit, but happened to be out of Japan. She's from Nigeria, played some high school ball in Japan, also has been in South Africa. So just a crazy backstory. Yeah.
Yeah, that is insane.
Yeah.
How has the support been? What have you seen at United Supermarkets Arena? Obviously, we know what the Tech, fan base can be like. We've seen it, and we've seen so much overwhelming success across all sports right now. I mean, it's insane. Softball, football, men's basketball, and now women's basketball. What has the support been like for you inside inside United Supermarkets Arena?
It's been incredible. I played back in the day when we did not play in the USA. We played in the Coliseum, and it held 8,500. 8,500. And my last 2 years of playing, we started selling it out. And obviously, that's kind of what started the building of the USA. And but they doubled it in size. It's like 15,500 now. And the Lady Raiders used to sell it out as well. Back in, when we moved into that, when Coach Sharp was back in those days, those 20 years that they were so successful, I think we were third in the nation in attendance with about 10 to 13,000 a night. That's been my goal, is to get us back there. And I would say the last couple of games, it has been really nostalgic for me a little bit. The other night I walked out onto the court and I believe we had over 6,000, and it was just feeling so much more like what I remember that. And so it's been fantastic. There's a lot of buzz about the Lady Raiders for so many different reasons, but they love this team. They love watching this team. We're expecting a really great crowd on Saturday at 1:00 against K-State. And then there's a doubleheader. So our men play BYU at 7. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of people going through the USA within that 12 hours of Red Raider basketball, whatever that looks like.
Coach, what's your take on the league overall this season?
I'm so excited about it and so proud about it. Like, I think there's some great parity. I think that it's now more than ever where you better be ready when you step out on that court, because 1 through 16 can get it done. And I just think there's been some great games. I think there's going to continue to be some great games. I love how deep it is. And I think, this might be our year to really go 7, 8, 9 into the tournament. And that would be incredible for the Big 12.
Yeah, what an incredible season it's been so far. Can't wait to see how this team finishes it out. And if you're able to get Stephanie eligible and playing this year, that'd be incredible to watch her get infused into what you're doing. What a season. Krista Gerlich, head women's basketball coach for the Texas Tech Lady Red Raiders, 17th in the nation, 6-0 in Big 12 play. They host K-State on Saturday. Thanks for your time this morning, and wreck 'em.
Thank you guys so much. Great talking to y'all. Wreck 'em for sure.
Take care. Coach Krista Gerlich. Who, she mentioned it, like, as a part of the most overwhelming success this program has had, winning a national championship along with Cheryl Swoops in 92, 93. And then, in returning and coaching at our alma mater. What an incredible opportunity. And to have this team where they are, it's been fun to watch them so far this year, James.
Yeah, this team's loaded. Bailey Maupin has taken her game to another level. They added Snetta Collins in the portal, who's averaging 14 points per game. Bristow's a 13-point-per-game scorer. And, they're at 19-0, 6-0, leading the Big 12. Like, this team is legit. This program is in a really good spot. Their net rankings continue to climb as they start to pick up some quad 1 wins. So Texas Tech women's basketball, man, and the fans show up. They are excited about this Texas Tech program, and United Supermarkets Arena is a very, very hostile environment that opponents have to walk into. And next up, K-State.
All right, with James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Our portal season update continues. We're talking Colorado and what they've done so far with their coaching staff and in the portal. That's next. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here are the top plays from this week's Player of the Week.
Some teams in foul trouble, sure, but you've got to turn those into points when you're struggling offensively, especially in Big 12 play.
Jada Malone just entered the game. That's a great dish to Bailey Maupin. Rebound Texas Tech. Back to Nunez. Second chance. Missed it again. Rebound Maupin. 2 offensive rebounds on this possession. A third three is good from Bailey Maupin. Maupin inside to Bristow. Mid-range J. No good. Still loose. Texas Tech corrals it. Nunez to a clapping Maupin for 3, and she knocked it down.
The West Virginia fans, a smile, she almost dove right into them, but beautiful answer, right? I thought that was an important time, not that there's not a lot.
And it's spun out. Rebound Bristow. Chance to tie or take the lead for Tech. Maupin for 3. Hits it. Texas Tech leads. With under 2 minutes to go.
And look at Bristow. 4 fouls going against 3 West Virginia players inside, able to come down with it. Find Maupin. Wide open.
An example for them going forward of how to play, how to prepare.
That's maybe not the best example there. Another turnover.
Well, Danae Fritz for Texas Tech, known as the top defender, challenged, forced the turnover.
The defensive glue for this Texas Tech team, and then Maupin knows how to finish at the other end. And DeVillisi takes a tumble in transition. Maupin makes him pay. Cincinnati didn't get back quick enough, and Maupin hits the three.
And Cincinnati is in a zone defense.
Pull up Maupin. Maupin free at the free throw line, and she connects. Cincinnati has only committed one team foul in this fourth quarter. Maupin.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo here on Big 12 Today. James, have you changed your background here? What happened to you?
I just pivoted, just a little pivot. I needed a little natural light in this hotel room here in Hub City, Lubbock. So we open the curtains and just have a really scenic view of West Texas with literal tumbleweeds flying across this field out to my left. I'm in a really new part of town, which means because it's so new, there's not a whole lot past it. But, man, Lubbock was rocking. It was rocking last night at the United Supermarkets Arena for their men's basketball team that got the win over Utah, and so many great games in the Big 12 outside of that UCF K-State game. Not a big fan of that one.
Yeah,
K-State's 0-4 in Big 12.
Probably haven't spent enough time talking about that game, so we'll make sure to get into that one coming up in the
I think we have. I think we broke it down at a high level, and I think we've said all we need to say about it. We probably never need to talk about it again.
Probably don't need to talk about K-State the rest of the year, in your opinion, right?
I don't think we do.
Yeah.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's talk about Colorado, shall we? We are doing a series right now, working our way up from the bottom of the standings to the top. It's portal season, so we're doing portal season updates right now. Oklahoma State was yesterday, and now Colorado is today, giving you updates on, we'll do periodic updates throughout the offseason on what these rosters and teams look like, because the transfer portal news comes fast and furiously, and so it's, it can be hard or complicated to kind of pay attention to all of it, and so we've tried to distill it down to the most important and impactful pieces. And so here we have Colorado, and this is obviously a huge year for Dion. They have a new offensive coordinator. We could start there, and a new athletic director. So Fernando Lovo officially took over on January 1st as the athletic director now at Colorado. And Dion has moved on from his offensive coordinator from last year, last couple of years, and hired Brennan Marion, a total offensive identity pivot for Colorado. Let's start there, James. Love this move. This is the complete opposite of what they had been, which is more of a pro style. What you see is what you get type of offense, not really moldable or bendable. And Brennan Marion brings this go-go offense that is way more a breath of fresh air in modern college football.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things had to happen in Boulder. Number one, there had to be some staff changes. Number two, this is a big offseason for their general manager because they've overhauled the roster now 3 years in a row. And without Shador at quarterback, they were a mess. Now, I do think that Juju Lewis will be back next season in Boulder, and this is going to be his team as a true sophomore.
Yeah.
And he went through some ups and downs when he was on the field, but all the tools are there. And I love that he's all in on Colorado. He's sitting courtside at basketball games, and Sacramento State's been a machine at the FCS level. And there are, whether it's FCS, JUCO, NAIA, it does not matter. Division II, you either can coach or you can't, and this guy can coach. Sacramento State has been electrifying offensively, and he's bringing a lot of his players with him. That go-go offense became really popular at UNLV. It's one of the most entertaining offenses in all of college football. Like, it's a hybrid offense between like what Tennessee runs, where everybody's flanked out really wide. It's got a lot of misdirection and window dressing, and they'll have multiple running backs on the field at the same time, and you don't know who's going to get the ball. It's running back by committee, and so I think that's a great move. And then having Juju Lewis, and then they've loaded up in the portal at the skill position spots, which is what they always do at Colorado. So can they add depth pieces in the trenches? And maybe Jordan Seaton transferred out, not only because of the money, but because he saw what was happening offensively, and it's a different scheme, or maybe he wasn't going to shine because in this offense, it can make up for a lot of inefficiencies on the offensive line. So Colorado doesn't know they don't need to be elite on the offensive line. They just have to be good enough to get the ball out quickly.
Yeah, and appreciate you pointing out that Marion left UNLV as the offensive coordinator, become the head coach for 1 year at Sac State. And yeah, I mean, this will be a fun offense. They run, it's sort of a dual back pistol look.
Yeah.
So they're going to run, out of the gun, out of the pistol, and then have basically two running backs, and which really forces some indecision from your linebackers because they have to account for the potential for the inside run or the wide zone. And then obviously the immediate pass threats. And we saw this, at UNLV, because UNLV had a few games against Big 12 opponents when Marion was the offensive coordinator there. But I mean, wide receivers and running backs become stars within this offense, and running back has been, and running the football has been a huge issue for Dion the last few years. And so I think the Marion hire is, to me, at the forefront of changes for Colorado. Who are some of the names in the portal they've added? They've added 35 players as of Wednesday in the portal. So, we've talked a lot about how transactional of a program this is, and this year's no different with all the additions. Who are the names that stand out to you in the portal?
Yeah, so I would say that, the last two portal seasons for Colorado, they added a ton of players, but their portal class has never ranked as high as it does right now as we sit here today. They're 17th in the country, and those 34 or 35 additions is par for the course in college football. Like, they're not completely overhauling this roster. But I look at the skill positions because in this go-go offense, the wide receivers always put up insane numbers. And they've added a guy that was a Bolitnikoff Award semifinalist, a transfer from San Jose State, Danny Scudero, who had 1,300 yards last season, 10 touchdowns. This is a really underrated add for Colorado. And then the other receivers, DeAndre Moore Jr., who transfers from Texas, had 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns the last two seasons for a Texas wide receiving core that was very much by committee. So he wasn't on the field as many snaps as some of those other guys, but he graded out this past season as Pro Football Focus's #1 receiver for Texas. And he wants to go somewhere where he can be on the field all 3 downs, and this is a great spot for him. And then Cam Perry, the Miami, Ohio transfer, who after Reggie Virgil transferred from Miami, Ohio to Texas Tech, Cam Perry stepped up for the Red Hawks and had a big season. And then he's added a bunch of guys from Sacramento State, including Damian Henderson II. He was their top rusher last year. So that's where I would start with those offensive skill position guys.
Yeah, that's a great grouping there. I mean, one of the names you just mentioned there is somebody that certainly stands out to me too, DeAndre Moore from Texas. He's a guy that could become, kind of again, this is an offense that kind of forces linebackers to have to make decisions to the point. And he's a guy that's kind of a speedster, and it's like get the ball out quickly to him. What about the offensive line? They lose Seaton, but they add Taj White from Rutgers. They add Bo Hughley from Georgia. Those are 2 guys along their offensive line. Also, Javen Richardson from Missouri. And then, Demetrius Hunter is one of the names that stands out most to me. Hunter is a guy that's, started for Houston, 6'2", 310 pounds, played 1,500 snaps over the past 2 years at Houston, allowing just 2 sacks and 757 pass blocking snaps per Pro Football Focus. So, look, offensive line was a major issue in Colorado's first year. It was improved into last year, but still probably not where they needed it to be. They're losing a, incredible left tackle in Seaton, but have they done enough to replace those guys, including Richardson, White, Soto from Sac State, who comes in with Marion, and then Demetrius Hunter, who I mentioned.
Yeah, I think, adding Soto, who's familiar with this offense and this scheme, is going to be very undervalued. He's probably a plug-and-play guy right away. Bo Hughley's their number 1 get. The offensive lineman from Georgia. He has NFL size with his length and his just pedigree and the teams that he's been on the field against. And then Taj White was a really experienced offensive lineman for Rutgers. He was Rutgers' number 1 offensive lineman. Javen Richardson transfers in from Missouri. Again, these are all offensive linemen. And Demetrius Hunter from Houston, who you broke down there. Those are 5 guys that come in, and maybe not all 5 start, because I don't think Colorado wants to revamp their entire offensive line again. But the pressure on that offensive line is going to be very different within this offense. Like, they don't have to do as much. It's going to be get the ball out quickly. They are going to look so different. And I think Julian Lewis is going to have a chance to thrive in this offense, because you look at what Marion's done at his previous stops, the quarterback, like the skill position guys, get the ball in space. They go tempo, and it's electric. So Dion's doing all the right things this offseason.
Yeah, and there's a few highly anticipated incoming either true freshmen or JUCO players, including Domata Peko Jr., who of course is the son of the stalwart NFL defensive lineman who's on staff at Colorado. He is classified as an athlete. He's a pass rusher who was from Calabasas, California, went to Ventura College, JUCO, and he's a ready now pass rusher to enter the fold. I would say from last year overall, like, there was a lot of disappointments for Colorado. Obviously as they finished towards the bottom of the standings of the Big 12, but defense is probably the biggest disappointment. I mean, this was a team that defensively a couple of years ago was dynamite, and last year took a huge step back with many of the same players. So while I look at the offense and how much change we should see there for the better, to me defensively they took such a huge step back last year.
Yeah, no, they did, and they've added some pieces in the portal defensively that are going to help them right away. Like Boo Carter's a 4-star safety from Tennessee who transfers in, 5'11", 200. He's going to be a plug-and-play guy. Leona Leifau from Texas, the linebacker who was a starter for them. He's a 4-star transfer who's coming in. And then I look at defensively, they've got an edge rusher from North Dakota State who is one of the most productive players at the FCS level. And get ready for this storyline because you'll hear it a bunch. Gideon ESPN Lamprin, a linebacker from Bowling Green, transfers to Colorado. He was an all-MAC linebacker. He's a really good player. And, yes, his middle name is ESPN. Gideon ESPN Lamprin, who went viral when he was in high school and somebody figured out that his middle name was actually ESPN. He's been at Bowling Green the last couple of years, and now he's in the Big 12.
Wow. And it's pronounced ESPN?
It's ESPN. His dad is a huge sports junkie, and he named his kid ESPN. Middle name. It's not ESPN, it's ESPN.
Wow, how about that? Yeah, Gideon ESPN Lamprin, linebacker from Bowling Green State University. How about that?
I wish there was a really cool, better story. It's just his dad was a sports nut, loved ESPN, and that's what they named him.
And I think again, when we evaluate the portal hauls, there's a couple of ways to look at it. There's just the guys that produce, regardless of schools. There's the guys that Cree Thomas comes in from Notre Dame. You've got Bo Hughley comes in from Georgia, right? So some big time name programs, but then you have to look deeper within there. And, Cree Thomas is more of a younger developmental corner, hasn't played a ton at Notre Dame so far in a short career. Bo Hughley played in 10 games last year, started 2 for Georgia along their offensive line. So, again, as you look at this, I think some of the times, the names of where these kids are transferring from, the schools will stand out. I think you need to look at the production. How much have they been playing and how much have they gotten on the field?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. So the guys defensively that I'm excited about, Emery Floyd is a cornerback who will step in and try to replace DJ McKinney. He was at App State last year, and at Appalachian State, he had 60 tackles, 6 pass breakups. He had an interception. He was an all-conference guy in that league. He has a track background, so he's got speed. And then Randon Fournette, a safety from Vanderbilt, who over the last 3 seasons has 125 tackles in the SEC. He's a guy that's been on the field a ton. Naton Mitchell, a safety from New Mexico State, led the conference among defensive backs with 93 tackles, also had 3 picks and 6 pass breakups. So they've done a little bit of both, and maybe even more so than ever, they've added these guys that were productive at their last stop. They haven't just chased these 4- and 5-star guys out of high school that were on the bench at other programs. They've gotten guys that were productive. Circling back to the wide receivers, all 3 of those receivers led their teams in one category or another, and one of them was a Biletnikoff finalist at San Jose State. So I like the approach that they've taken this offseason.
All right, let's talk about it with Nikki Edwards, Buffs beat reporter for Yahoo Sports. That's next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Here are the top assists from last night's action.
Be it for them as far as their basketball career goes. Nice pass, Nunez inside to Malone. Emma Nunez averaging over 5.5 assists a ball game. Lead down to 6. Tech's led by as many as 9.
Beautiful move there by Saratonogo down underneath the rim. Good power. I see
Samaya Nichols had a little less playing time in practice this week, was injured late. Got the ball inside quickly, though, on the first possession to Jalea Davis.
Yeah, we went to in her game against Kansas when she wore a BYU uniform.
3 was missed by Timmer. In and out, got the ball to Davis on the bounce across the lane from Nichols. Both Reagan Williams and Jalea Davis on the floor. Both have battled injuries at the same point for a little while. Nice backdoor cut. Libby Fandel off the Davis assist.
And that's beautiful.
Dribble drive from Miles. The dish tipped. And a takeaway for West Virginia. Shaw back the other direction. Feed inside. I don't know how she found the space to get that one to Carter McRae.
To build that so quickly and build that chemistry that they have is pretty remarkable.
Wheeler can't find it. Suarez defended it well. She shoves it into Thomas.
Cyclones have the first opportunity. Drive and a shot missed by Kenzie Hare flying into the left side. Colorado now looks to answer or to score first in this game. Drive and a bucket for Zywalker. Boy, the few Buffs have missed everything too strong over the top.
I mean, it's rough, right? Shooting 19% from the field right now, and they're not even drawing iron.
Wilkie up the court for the Utes. Right to the rim, Brooke Walker. Welcomed back to the starting lineup.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo. And as we continue our portal season updates, talking Colorado football, we welcome in our friend Nikki Edwards, Buffs beat reporter and editor for Yahoo Sports. What's going on, Nikki? How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. It's been a busy offseason so far for the Buffs after a very disappointing season. Let's just start kind of big picture. There's a new athletic director that just took over Jan 1. Brendan Marion comes in to run the offense. I guess, from a high level standpoint, how much different or at all will Fernando Lovo be? Do you think this maybe, puts Dion in a situation where he has to win, this year, next year? And then how much do you think that the offense will change with Brendan Marion?
Well, just from an administrative level, I really do like the hire of Fernando. Just a lot of success at New Mexico State, and what went into this hire, Coach Prime and former athletic director Rick George are really looking at someone young and someone who bring more success to the university. And Rick George is still going to be looming in the background, helping out with things, helping Fernando kind of get his feet wet and really understand the operations of the university and helping bring, of course, more revenue and more success, of course, to all their athletic programs. He's really focused on, bringing in more money and just helping out wherever he needs to. And of course, college football, they get the lion's share of that revenue. It's about kind of 80% of what Colorado brings in. So hopefully Coach Prime can have the financial resources to really compete. Of course, it's hard to compete against the large SEC programs, but I think Colorado's going to do what they can to kind of stay prominent within the Big 12 and bring in the best talent. Because this past season, I think we all saw 3-9 season. The talent drop off from 2024 to 2025, pretty significant, and it showed within their record. And now it's time to rebuild the roster. And of course, as we've seen this portal season, a lot of guys left, a lot of talented guys left for other schools. I think one thing that I was really emphasizing before the portal opened was talent retainment. Of course, they lost Jordan Seaton, they lost their best tackler, Tawfiq Byard, their best wide receiver, Omarion Miller, Draylon Miller, another wide receiver. Just a lot of key pieces where it's like, what were these talks of? I thought these guys were, somewhat committed. At least Jordan Seaton was one guy who kind of shocked the system. It was like, oh, okay, it's like this year. And I think Colorado did do a good job kind of bringing in some Power 5 talent this year, but it's going to take a lot again to really get back to that 2024 success. Of course, you don't have Shedeur and Travis Hunter, and when you don't have guys like that, it really, as you saw this past season, makes such a significant difference in the offense. But Brendan Marion, that was one thing that Colorado really needed to address was their offensive coordinator, because we all know Pat Shurmur, just the lack of creative play calling, just lots of screens, and just not a lot of production in that offense last year, just because they're working with multiple quarterbacks. There wasn't a lot of, I think, people on the same page, and it just didn't look the same as it did in 2024. And what I really like about Brendan Marion, he is a creative play caller. He designed the go-go offense. It's kind of designed around the triple option, but it allows the quarterback some more flexibility, a lot of downhill runs. It's not going to be like Army or Navy triple option, but it allows RPOs and just a little bit more tempo and more misdirection and disguising offensive play calling. And I think it's going to allow this offense just to open up a little bit more. There's so many different weapons that Colorado brought in. I think Brendan Marion's going to do a good job in elevating the individual talents of the team. And what I like about Brendan Marion, he was the highest paid coach in FCS. He was the number one ranked 2026 recruiting class in FCS. He had 39 rushing touchdowns last season. It was a school record, 53 touchdown total. And last year, Colorado only had 32 touchdowns. Wow. And 251 total points. And last year,
We lose Nikki? Did you freeze on us? Or is that me?
No, that is Nikki. That is Nikki. Thought the same thing. Thought we were all frozen. She'll be back.
Yeah. I guess takeaways from what we just heard there from Nikki, based on some of the conversations we've had. I think first off,
He's a player's coach from what we've heard, and hopefully that can translate onto the field, because one thing that Colorado has is really, really talented guys, and now we just need a coordinator to put them in those productive positions.
All right, Nikki. So when you talk about this offense, it's really exciting. Is Julian Lewis the guy that's going to be quarterbacking this offense, and how does it fit his skill set?
Oh yeah, Julian Lewis is definitely the number one guy. Caden Salter is going to the league. Ryan Staub, their former backup, he entered the portal. So Julian Lewis is the guy. It's going to be his offense, and I think he fits well. I think Brennan Marion's good at taking tools out of, well, he worked at high schools and he worked at Sac State, guys who aren't, maybe the most talented. He's able to bring the best out of them. And of course, we saw Julian Lewis. He ended up being the guy. He's a good passer. I think one element of his game can be more decisive runs, maybe some design quarterback runs, and elevate the ground game a little bit more. But he already has the arm and he already has the accuracy. And now I think it's Brendan Marion's duty to bring more efficiency to his game. And I think this offense is really going to cater to his strengths of letting him decide the game, letting him decide what he's seeing on the field, and just being the best he can be in the pocket. I think the offensive line is going to play a huge, of course, a huge role in the success of Colorado this year. And of course, without Jordan Seaton and a few guys like going and committing to the league now, it's going to be interesting to see how they can adapt once again. And I think last year where Colorado really fell short is they had that offensive talent, but they didn't have the offensive coordinator to really guide them to the success. So I think Julian Lewis is in good hands with Brendan Marion, and it's going to be a really, hopefully, better year on the offensive side, where we're really able to see the pass game get elevated more, the run game. And this is going to be an offense where they're not struggling to get to the end zone, and it's not going to be those games where they're down by a score and then the clock runs out. It's going to be made more efficient, more productive, and I think we're really going to see the best out of Julian Lewis this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a much better offense that fits him, much, much better than what Pat Shurmur had. Curious with the loss of Seaton and then what they've added in the portal. They've certainly added some guys. I mean, Demetrius Hunter started a ton of games for Houston at center the last couple of years. So give us just kind of your sense overall of what the offensive line is going to look like next year.
It's going to be another conglomeration of guys that have come through the portal. I think, I was really, really upset to see Jordan Seaton leave, because I think with Colorado, you just see so much instability and turnover. And Jordan Seaton was nicknamed the franchise, and now who's going to be the new franchise? Hopefully it can be someone on the offensive line. Taj White, Rutgers offensive tackle. He started in 20 plus Big Ten games in his career. I think he's going to be an immediate plug and play guy. Jose Soto from Sac State, he's a guard. I think you can also put him in. And of course, you got another offensive tackle, Bo Hughley from Georgia. That was another really huge get. And I think that's kind of where the dominoes fell. They got Taj White, offensive tackle, Bo Hughley, offensive tackle, and then maybe Jordan Seaton was seeing these guys come in, but also probably got a bag from somewhere else. But at least at the tackle spots, you can immediately put in Taj White and Bo Hughley. Bo Hughley's 6'7", 295 pounds. And he was a top 80 overall recruit and 173 snaps at right tackle this season for Georgia. And when you're playing for Georgia, that's a lot of good reps under your belt. And I think it's an immediate guy that you can put in and have some production there. I think where these guys really succeeded, both Taj White and Bo Hughley were really good at the run game. Now it's time to help in the pass game and help with that pass blocking a little bit more and develop them. I think they'll be able to compete. I think they're going to have that Houston center. I think it's just a question of who's going to be that right or left guard and solidifying those pieces. But at least at the tackle spots, where I find is very important, I think they're going to be pretty set there and have enough experience on those sides to where Julian Lewis will feel secure in the pocket.
Nikki, they've loaded up at wide receiver, but you also noted off the top, some of the departures they've had at that position. So what can you tell us about the guys coming in, and do they have potential to be more productive than they were a year ago?
I was going back and looking at the wide receiver room. I was really impressed with what Coach Prime picked up in the portal. Yes, there's a talent drop off, and you got Draylon Miller, who departed, a really good slot guy, running back esque, and Omarion Miller, really good post routes, really good route runner, fast, quick. But Texas wide receiver DeAndre Moore, that was a really, really big get for Colorado. 77 receptions last year, 988 yards, 11 touchdowns during his time at Texas. And I was really shocked, well, not shocked, but I was really impressed with the talent that he's able to provide. And he's going to be an immediate plug and play guy too. And of course, you can't forget San Jose State, Danny Scudero. He was a Blintikoff semifinalist this past year in an All Mountain West selection, and he led the nation in receiving yards. He previously played at Sac State, and I think that's what Brendan Marion helped him transfer over to Colorado. He was so productive last year, AP second team All-American, and I think when you get a guy like that, you are going to be insured. Hopefully, at the wide receiver position, he's going to be a guy that gets plenty of targets and a lot of action on the field. He's a proven threat, and he's going to be just such a crucial piece in Colorado's offense this year. And they also got Miami, Ohio wide receiver Cam Perry, 976 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2025. And I think he's going to be able to immediately go in at the slot position and replace some of that talent that Draylon Miller provided at that position. He was really productive at Miami, Ohio, and I think they addressed their perimeter, their slot, and now they have, let me see, I think they have 10 scholarship wide receivers, and of course they have Joseph Williams, former AAC Freshman of the Year, still on the roster. He's shown his commitment to Colorado, and they also got Ernest Campbell from Sac State as well. He's more of a veteran guy, 755 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns this year, and he was a FCS freshman All-American, and he's a really, really fast too. His 100-meter time was 10.23 seconds, which Tyreek Hill and Devon Acne, their 100 meters are 10 seconds and 10.15 seconds. So just that comparison, he's really fast, and he's going to probably replace the size and speed of that Omarion Miller provided. So I think they addressed those losses pretty well at wide receiver. And yeah, I was really, really excited about Danny Scudero. I mean, when you got a guy that's out for the Blintikoff, you got a real weapon there.
Last thing for me, Nikki, is the defensive side. I think was probably the biggest disappointment last year, considering how much success the defense had a couple of years ago. What do you notice about what they've done defensively?
I think where Colorado really missed last year is at the linebacker position. In 2024, they had Levonta Bentley and Kai Hill Green. They had a 1-2 punch, and that's what really turned around Colorado's run stoppage. This past year, they brought in 2 guy from UTSA and then Jacksonville State, and just the talent drop off there wasn't as big of a front in the run game that we would like to see. Of course, there was good defensive ends, but it was more of a struggle at the second level and at the front just to put some pressure on the quarterback. That's all we're asking for. And I think this year, defensive tackles, like a lot of guys left from the defensive tackle spot and the edge spot, about 5 guys, and now they added 5 more guys to help re-up that position group. The biggest one that pops out to me is Tulane defensive tackle Santana Hopper. That was probably one of the biggest gets on the defensive side with all the departures. He had 100 tackles, 25.5 tackles for loss, and 13 sacks over the last 3 seasons. He's a first-team All-Sun Belt at App State and first-team All-AAC at Tulane this year. He's going to be an immediate plug-and-play guy. He was a huge pickup. So he's just going to be an immediate starter and someone that Colorado really needed to have a more physical front. Yes, I do think they need to add a little bit more there, maybe develop more guys. They picked up Coastal Carolina DT, Tyler Moore, and App State defensive tackle Dylan Manuel. Just a lot of guys that, we're at smaller schools and need to be developed a little bit more to provide that Power 4 Big 12 front. But another huge pickup that I was really excited about was Leonga Lafau, Texas linebacker, 138 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 passes defended, a forced fumble, and interception during his time with the Longhorns. And this is going to be another guy that's going to have immediate starting power and be that grounding presence at the second level of the defense. And I think another thing that affected Colorado's defense last year was there was no leadership. The guy who got the green dot was Levante Bentley and Nikai Hill Green 2024, and they did a great job in orchestrating it, telling guys where they need to be. And just at the beginning of the season, Reginald Hughes got the green dot. Usually the linebackers get that communicative piece, and there was a drop off in the play calling, and they were talking at the beginning of the season like they were getting adjusted to Robert Livingston's play calling, and I think we just saw a lot of miscues and a lot of guys getting beat most of the time because there wasn't someone that the defense could look to and be like, okay, this is it. The offense is moving. What are we going to do? And it was just there wasn't a lot of pressure on the quarterback, as I mentioned. The corners were getting beat. Also, the corners were injured. There's so many injuries on defense last year too. It was just kind of a mess. So this year, hopefully they can keep guys like Lafau and Hopper healthy and bring in some more talent too, to where they can maintain one of the more productive defenses. Because I think we saw what Robert Livingston did in 2024. He really turned around that defense. As I mentioned, like their run stoppage was a lot more productive. And this year, just everything kind of fell flat because they didn't have the talent. And I think that this season, I think they're going to have more of that talent. They're bringing in more Power 4 guys that are ready to play. And it's, as you know, optimistic in January. What can I say? But
right.
I do like what they're bringing in, and I think there is a higher ceiling for them to be more productive.
Well said. Nikki Edwards does a great job in covering Colorado Buffaloes and editing for Yahoo Sports. Nikki, thanks for your time. Appreciate it very much. Be well.
Yeah, have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Too. Thank you. Nikki Edwards joining us here on Big 12 Radio, along with James Wesley. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Coaches, welcome to the building, Bill Fenley and the Iowa State staff. Tip-off is tossed up, and it ends up in the hands of Iowa State. Cyclones have the first opportunity drive, and a shot missed by Kenzie Hare flying into the left side. Colorado now looks to answer or to score first in this game. Drive and a bucket for Zy Walker.
Such a presence inside.
I know the difference between Greer and Masagayo, but I'm not the only one who would mistake the two of them. Great wingspan, athleticism. Here's the shot up, Crooks. Macker Lane triggers that into Dutah. Just a couple seconds now, one to shoot. Wooten gets it off and hit the three as the shot clock buzzer sounded. Couple sub-ins. It was Greer and Gooden who just checked in. Wooten rolls it down. She might get to 15 points a different way. Tried a three last time, missed it badly. Here has the and one. Harris scoring well tonight. Sydney dribbling against Utah. Right side. Kept her pivot foot down. Will fade away. Floated up and hit it in front of the shot clock expiration.
I'm saying just to right the awareness. Wooten pulling that. She had an opportunity, but pulls it back out.
Could she do it again? Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Down to 50 seconds. Walker with 7 to shoot. Wooten to go over 20 points on the night. Why not? 22 in the game for Desiree Wooten on the three.
Right, exactly. An impressive double-double. And it's an amazing, feat to hold her to that.
Masagayo winds up with 15 points on that free throw. Colorado knocks off 19th ranked Iowa State.
Big 12 Radio on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Of course, you could find out where Big 12 Studios is located. Easiest place to find it would be big12studios.com. Of course, you can also find us on YouTube as a part of the Big 12 conference page or Tubi, Roku, Amazon Prime Video. And of course, we're always on the TuneIn app where you download that and then search Big 12. Make sure to favorite the channel, and you get us each and every morning from 7 to 10 Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. And you'll also get the game of the week, BYU at Texas Tech. What a banger we have on Saturday for you. 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, Saturday night, game of the week, BYU at Texas Tech. Big-time basketball game going up against some of those divisional playoff games in the National Football League. On tomorrow's show, we're going to be visiting with one of the best coaches in college basketball, Kelvin Sampson, friend of the program, Houston basketball coach, joins us tomorrow at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern Time. So you are not going to want to miss Mr. Kelvin Sampson on tomorrow's show, James.
Dude, super excited to catch up with Coach Sampson. During that last interview that we had with Nikki Edwards, I went down a real rabbit hole, and I try to stay really locked in to our guest. But when she started talking about the go-go offense, I made the mistake of Googling what is the go-go offense, and I went down a go-go offense rabbit hole deep. I'm looking
How
at
deep?
play diagrams. I'm looking at what Coach Marion did at UNLV. At UNLV, they led the nation and the Mountain West in like every offensive statistical category possible. And he had an average quarterback who he made look like a rock star. Julian Lewis could have a big year. They do some really unique stuff. I didn't realize he was at William & Mary when William & Mary was competing for FCS championship games 3 or 4 years ago. Like, they'll line up quad wide receivers to one side of the field, and one of those receivers, by rule, is ineligible because of where the running back is. But it makes the defense try to figure which one's ineligible, which one's not going to be going out for a pass and is going to be blocking for what could be a little swing pass for the running back. If that's not there, they're checking it down to the receiver. It's a very RPO-based, very unique offense that is blowing up. Like, this guy's selling playbooks and doing coaching sessions, and it's going to be fun to watch, man. Colorado's going to be really entertaining football next year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Iowa State defensively is going to look so much different than how they've looked, and like schematically, same with Colorado's offense. It's like there's a few changes here from a coaching perspective that are going to be like 180-degree changes for these programs in terms of what they've been running.
Completely agree. And when you think about Colin Klein, who will probably be calling the plays, I imagine, at Kansas State, schematically, like, they're not going to look that much different than how they've looked the last couple of years. But you think about what Marion's doing at Colorado, what Eric Morris is going to be doing at Oklahoma State, what Utah did this past season with completely overhauling their offense, with Andy Kotelnicki back in Lawrence at Kansas as an assistant coach. This league, it could shift back to how do you stop these teams? Whereas in recent years, it's been about the defense, especially this past season. The offenses weren't quite as good. Next year, man, it could be games in the 40s and 50s again, just like back in the day.
All right, Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We didn't have enough time today to break down UCF K-State last night, which is very disappointing, I'm sure, for you, James. But this tweet from Kellis Robinette last night, Jerome Tang says the K-State roster needs to learn how to play like the more desperate team in the Big 12. That certainly didn't happen tonight against UCF.
Yeah, when you're 0-3 in league, you'd think there'd be a little bit of desperation fight. And they don't have that. And Jerome Tang just looks beat down. The thing that disappointed me about his post-game press conference is I didn't hear him take any accountability. In fact, he said that, the coaches are putting the players in the right spots to be successful. They just haven't bought in. And I think that it's a team effort, man. Like, it's not just on the players. And this team's 0-4. What are they, 9-9 now? Like, any chance of making the NCAA tournament is out the door. This team's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, here is what Jerome Tang said following their loss to start 0-4 in league play.
I don't know. I hope they're pissed off. Hopefully, with these 4 losses, they'll come back in and they say, "Okay, coach, we don't have the answers. You got to help us because we're giving them what they need. They just have to go out and they have to execute it. And at some point in time, it falls on their shoulders to do it."
Ooh. I would buy that a little bit more if this weren't sort of a carbon copy of last year, especially from like the desperation standpoint. Like they were not the more desperate teams in situations where they needed to be. And they had that stretch in the Big 12 where they won some games. But then after that, that was like, they were like, oh, we've done enough. So, I mean, I'd be more willing to buy this whole, like, they just got to go out there and execute if, you had proven over the last couple of years to maybe change things a little bit differently. But it feels like year one was different and the last 3 years are more of the same for Jerome Tang.
Yeah, like, man, if you've got a team that isn't open to coaching and feedback, if you have a bunch of players that aren't coachable, then you've recruited the wrong type of kid.
Who's that?
You recruited the wrong type of player. And K-State just look lost right now. I hear what he's saying, but I would have liked to have heard a little more accountability from the coaching side of things. That felt like excuses to me, and it didn't move the needle for me. Like, that sounds like a coach who I don't want to say he doesn't care, because I know he cares, but he's just so laid back, and I think that his players kind of embody that. Like, they don't look like they care when they're on the floor. They look like they care about their stats and their numbers and scoring the basketball, and that's it, man. And it's gone from bad to worse.
Yeah, well said. All right. Arizona survives against their rival Arizona State last night in a game that got chippy. Here's what Tommy Lloyd said after the game about what he learned about his team following that win.
That we're here for it. We don't have hubris. We don't expect these games to come easy. We obviously take all these games serious. So I really appreciate the battle tonight. I appreciate the competition. And you know what? I probably would have been okay if we would have lost. Really happy we won, but to keep things moving. So yeah, I learned that our guys are here for it, and you put them in tough situations. They're not afraid to make plays and find a way in a really tough game.
Yeah, I love that answer from Tommy Lloyd, because, it's like, I would have been fine if we lost, and like, let's just move it along. Like I think Tommy, and we've heard a little bit from Tommy about this throughout the season, about like, he's learned a lot. He's learned through what happened last year with a slow start and finishing strong. He's learned through having a really fast start and being, a number one seed. I think Tommy just wants this season to go through, and then let's get to the end and see how good this thing really is. Not to say he wants to skip the steps, but I think this learning about your team game in and game out isn't something that Tommy's willing to really, dig into, because he probably thinks it's like anything, right? You play 2 games a week, you're going to lose some, you're going to win some. But nice win, you move on to the next one.
Yeah, a day at the office. They took care of business. They got their best shot from Arizona State. And what he's saying with the lack of hubris and arrogance, and this is a team that I believe it. Like, the way they play, it's not about one guy. Their leading scorer averages 14 points per game, and they're the top scoring team in the Big 12. They are so balanced that they don't care about who does or who doesn't get theirs. And Braden Burry's a freshman is a great example of that. Highly touted top 10 recruit, comes in and struggles right away. His first 5 or 6 games, he was not very good. He was shooting the ball at a poor clip. He couldn't he couldn't get to the foul line or find his way. And now look at him. He's just completely blown up. And even during that stretch where he was struggling, all of his teammates and Coach Lloyd was saying, like, he's no different now than he was then. He just stayed the course, kept doing his thing, trusted the process, and that's the Arizona way, is they trust the process, and it's paying off, man. It's paying off in a big way.
Yeah. And finally, Cincinnati gets its first win. They beat Colorado, impressive win at home. Here's what Wes Miller said about fans booing in the pregame.
From my standpoint, there's so much support. That's what I focus on. I think the guys feel support. I think they feel the cheers, and we're at a place where the expectations are really high, because of what's happened here, over such a long period of time. We all came here because of that, but I think to to talk just about that takes away from all the people. And there's almost 10,000 people there tonight, and there's a lot of people cheering and supporting. I think that's the part that I think we all appreciate.
All right, so Miller kind of took aim at some of the detractors, after their last game, and this game he decided following after a win to focus on the positives.
Yeah, and he's right. There's still 10,000 people there to watch a Cincinnati team that hadn't won a Big 12 game. So the fan support is there. I see a lot of parallels between Cincinnati and Kansas State in that the fans want nothing more than to have a winning basketball program because they are a basketball school historically. They were basketball before they were football. And Wes Miller's going to have to do a lot, I think, to be back next season. But this was a step in the right direction because they got out to a big lead. They led by as many as 21 points. They were up by 18 at halftime. And then at about the 11-minute mark, Colorado started chipping away, and they got it down to 5 with 5:44 to go. And that's a game that we've seen Cincinnati lose time and time again. But they slammed the door shut on the comeback, and maybe this gives them a little bit of momentum. They're still a sneaky team that, I wouldn't want to play in Cincinnati because they're dangerous with the way they defend and the length and the size that they have on the inside with Baba Miller.
Yeah, well said. All right, tomorrow's show, Kelvin Sampson joins us. Plus, which team are we going to be focused on? The portal season updates. Who's next?
Coming up tomorrow, I believe it's West Virginia. I will confirm it is the West Virginia Mountaineers.
All right, West Virginia on tomorrow's show. Should be a lot of fun. And again, 9:30 a.m. Central, 10:30 Eastern Time. We got Kelvin Sampson. For Anthony Smith, our great producer with Big 12 Studios. For T-Change, Tammy Turner, great producer with TuneIn. Thanks to James Westlake. I'm Ari Tepkin. We're back tomorrow. But for now, we're out. Peace.